yeah, what Trip and I were talking about was whether or not you anticipated doing this exact thing, and at what point. Like you always hear the classic story of like, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. It just kind of manifested itself for me, and I'm curious to what extent that was true for each of you in
Hmm.
getting into what you're doing before we really define what it is you're doing. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear the backstory about it.
Well, I wanted to do media stuff in general for a very long time. You can look back into like my deep YouTube history, and I've been making videos on YouTube for like 12 years. I think the first one was uploaded in 2012, so that
Oh
actually
wow.
makes it 13 years. But
On
I
what?
was that was like a high or a middle school like
Mm.
Spanish class project.
Okay,
Technically, is
so
my
just like
first
making
video.
videos.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I just loved making videos, and that I my like very first YouTube channel, which you can still find out there. It's called like Flarpy Productions. Had it as a
Nice,
teenager. It's
nice.
just full of like badly made
Oh yeah,
skits and teenager level projects basically. So
nice.
from an early age, I wanted to do videos. Didn't really have any idea about doing documentary stuff until more recently,
Mm.
last few years. But I've always like enjoyed making videos. That's
Yeah,
been just the thing that keeps sucking me in
yeah,
all throughout. So,
yeah.
and then of course, for every kid who wants to make videos, there's always that slight ambition of like, oh, if I could have my very own TV show or make like a professional movie or do something like that, it's like, of course you want to do it.
Yeah.
Though you probably never expect that you will actually do it.
Well, and that's another thing is like with the modern age and YouTube, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you can have your own show with no producers, no overhead,
Yeah.
no anything. Like something else we can talk about too. But yeah, it's we're kind of in a weird, interesting time now where that is becoming a real plausibility for people. And so, like for me personally, like I'm at a point where semi-established, but like still kind of figuring things out as far as like what I truly want to be doing within video. Because now again, that yeah, there's so many realms.
Mm.
So yeah, to you guys, the same question: how did you get into it, and what are your thoughts on like where the industry is going? Or
Go for it, bud.
Um, well, I don't know if I know too much about the industry. Um,
you might have to hold it a little bit closer,
oh,
or you can also extend it too. Like that first knob there should allow you to just extend the yeah the whole thing. There's a sandbag on the stand, so as long as it doesn't fall, there you go.
nice.
And the whole thing pivots and articulates, obviously. So pull it as close as you need. Yeah,
That's
that thing
good.
sucks.
I'll need it to be articulate for me.
Yeah, right.
Um, is that good?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Perfect.
So I guess the way I got into all this was Keegan and I, best friends in high school, and we were both into photography at the time. Keegan, of course, was also making videos, but I wasn't particularly aware of that.
Mm.
And he and I were really into just sort of exploring because we were both just sort of like edgy, restless high schoolers. And
Yeah.
so we did a lot of that and always brought our cameras. And
Gotta
after
document our crimes.
exactly,
course.
yeah, yeah, it's we had some crazy antics,
Oh yeah.
but we ended up going on some like multi-day road trips, and we're just having a lot of fun with that. And after a while, I think Keegan just had the idea to bring the camera, but to actually shoot video and to
Mhm.
actually make it into a documentary about the trip.
And
And
so
from
was that
there, sorry,
I was just gonna say, is like the Alvord Desert video one of those such things, or was that a
yeah,
later?
yeah, that was the second one we did.
Okay.
The first, I mean, yeah, that was the second one Keegan and I did. There were various videos that Keegan did by himself
Okay.
and with some
Prior.
other people outside this group. I think the first one Keegan and I did was about this mining ghost town up in northeastern Oregon called Cornucopia.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, to me, it kind of just felt like another fun road trip, but sort of with the added element of like, all right, now we're filming stuff and we're
Yeah.
gonna turn it into a more of a story. So then I was in college at that time. So I sort of kept being in college, and Keegan and Trip were down here.
Mm.
And so whenever we had the opportunity, we were, doing stuff, making videos, things like that. But it wasn't until I was out of college that I really started considering, like, okay, is this the star that I should just like hitch my
The Lone
wagon
Star,
to,
right. Yeah.
And sort of figured out why not?
Yeah.
I kind of had all the tools available to me to just sort of do the thing, as I always call it, just get your degree, then go get a job, and
Yeah.
then grad school, then get another job or whatever. So
Yeah.
I sort of was thinking, am I going to do that, or am I going to take this opportunity? So
Yeah.
Come do zany shoots of crazy protests and stuff with me, because
Yeah,
that's what it was when
Yep.
Lewis came down here. His
Yep.
first shoot with us was an
You're like, hey,
anti-vax protest.
Remember
in
those
Ashland.
trips we were taking, those fun adventures? Well, now we're going to the streets, man.
Yeah.
It's different entirely now. Yeah. Was it similar for you? I mean, I remember, did we actually have classes together?
I think
can
we
never
had
remember.
I think we had a
least a
couple of
couple.
classes together, yeah.
Okay.
And you actually hired me for I think it was a MLK
That's right. Yeah.
event at the Ashland Public Library with D.L. Richards and that.
Yep.
And that was a great shoot. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. That was
Yeah,
fun.
no, of course. That's part of the reason. Just before you get a chance to talk, I'm gonna let you finish. But that was part of the thing for me of getting into this is like I just love collaboration. And like when you guys are talking about your trip, I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I envision myself doing, is like having a buddy going out somewhere. Because for me personally, like it's hard for me to get inspired to do that kind of stuff on my own.
Mhm.
Like I went through that similar phase of like I just like making videos, and like in high school it's the same thing. I got that bug of I had fun editing, and it's just you and your friends in high school. You get to walk around the whole campus with a camera. Are you kidding? Like, and your teacher lets you, and the principals can't say anything. Like, it was the best. So then from there, it's just like, oh, you can get a degree in this. Oh, you can get a career in this. So I just kind of followed that rabbit hole. But but never really got that chance to explore it like recreationally, like outside of school, because I feel like I didn't have that other person to do it with. And so I knew getting into it, what I really wanted was to create a business like this where I could like hire people and like have people come help me and like seek out people who are talented. And like that is what really brings me a lot of joy too, is like, let's build a team. Let's like make something happen. And part of the reason I wanted to bring you guys in is because I see you've done that and done it really successfully. And I'm super eager to hear about it. But yeah. And then so as far as how you got actually into it, outside of just knowing scrubs like me, like what kind of actual work did you get to do?
So I guess we'll go to high school. It's kind of where it started
Yeah.
seriously for me, where
Really?
was in broadcasting and then was doing running camera for a lot of sporting events in Alabama, mainly football. And then I was on like a stationary cam, but then they upgraded me to like a sideline.
Mm.
So I would just run the sideline and get some footage that way.
Oh, wow.
And
This is for high school?
yeah.
Was it for like the high school news program?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it was at the time we were broadcasting live the football games through a
switch.
thing called iHigh.
Okay.
That was based in Kentucky.
Okay.
And
Oh, like a way to showcase the high school sports games.
yeah, and so anybody across the nation could watch it. And it was
Wow.
like tennis, soccer, volleyball, all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I say wow because like I clearly went to a smaller high school where that was not a thing. It was
So did Lewis and
Yeah.
I.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
exactly.
no, my high school, my graduating class had about 823 people.
Mm.
That's bigger than our high school.
The entire high school that Lewis and
Which,
I went to
which
was
where?
we went to LaSalle Catholic College Preparatory.
Which sounds
Yes, it sounds
it
exactly
sounds
like
extremely
it sounds.
fancy.
Yeah, I was also gonna say it sounds a little indoctrinating. It sounds.
Believe it or not, they did a pretty good job
it not
not
very-
doing that.
There
Okay,
were
that's
parts
good.
of it that kind of were like you did actually have to go to mass. They would have like a
Okay.
mass like once a month, I think, or maybe twice.
It was actually like 6 times a year. It was like
Yeah, it
once
actually
every
wasn't
2
that
months you
often.
had to go to mass.
So that like some people weren't super happy with that, and I
Sure.
can't blame them. But
Okay.
the education, even like the religious education, was not bad.
No, I mean I'm sure it was top quality education, or at least close. Like it's the same thing with St. Mary's here, the private school. A lot of people, a lot of kids who don't take it seriously. You know, they're high schoolers, but you can't really argue with their like results and their programs and like the stuff they get done. But it's just there's always those trade-offs. But yeah, that is tend to be how it is. Like smaller graduating class, you don't get some of that fancy stuff sometimes.
Definitely. Yeah, there was our drama program. That was kind of where Keegan and I became friends, was in our school's drama program. And it was pretty janky. Some of like
A
the
lot of
equipment we had to work with and the physical conditions we were working in sometimes were a little
Questionable
sketchy. Yeah.
for
Sometimes.
students.
Yeah, like the little tunnel above the auditorium where you'd hang the lights
Yeah.
would get to be like 130 degrees
In the summer.
In the summer, it's just like
Wow.
a convection oven in there.
Oh God.
Yeah.
But seriously, nothing but good things to say about the LaSalle Prep Theater program.
Yeah.
Made me who I am in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, like what were you guys' roles? Like technical, or were you guys actually on stage? And like, do you have experience actually acting or speaking in that realm?
Yeah, I would split my time in the theater department between acting and doing like stage managing.
Oh, wow.
I was very interested in both sides of the
wow.
theater thing. So I like to play villains. I would try to audition
know
to play
that.
villains, and I got to be a few villains. I also got to be like henchmen sometimes. But I was in like maybe half the plays that happened during the time I was in high school. And then the other half of the plays I would do like props and set building and stuff. And then in the later years I actually got to be like the stage manager and stuff. So the high school theater program was great for giving me like the, stuff that I think is still relevant to me, like being in front of the camera, acting and charisma and speaking with diction and all of that kind of stuff. But then also I got like a good technical foundation from that.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
No, I was
I did audio stuff pretty much the whole time.
okay.
The director really wanted me to act, and I probably should have. But I auditioned for a role in the first show when I was a freshman, like the fall show. I auditioned for a role and was just terrible. I just completely bombed. And after that, I was like, okay, screw this. I'm doing something else. So I did audio.
Yeah, that's how it goes. But I don't. When you said I probably should have, it made me think of this thought I've had for a little bit now, watching just like learning about improv, not learning improv, but learning about it. This is like one of those things that could be a TED Talk, but I don't know if it is. But I'm sure maybe some people have said it. Is I think everyone should learn how to act. Like everyone should learn like how those basic things you're talking about, like diction and just general speaking and like how to present themselves and how to pretend to be someone else so that you can kind of gain that confidence. I think there could be a lot of value in that potentially. Like everybody should have I guess we have to take stuff like public speaking, which is probably close to that in college or whatever. But I just mean like genuinely like being on front of a stage, even if you're not good, like there's probably some things everyone could learn that give you like that sense of or performance of some kind,
Yeah.
which maybe for some people that's athletics, but I don't know. I think there's something about acting specifically and maybe even more specifically improv that teaches you about like how to interact with humans and how to use your body and to communicate ideas and stuff.
And how to just get over yourself, I think is a big part of it.
Big time.
That too,
in the
yeah.
freshman drama class I took, one of the first assignments we had was our teacher told us, like, tomorrow or next time you come into class, I'm going to ask each of you in turn to just do something stupid and embarrassing in front of the whole class. And so that day he gave us one day to think about it, and then he would just go and like, all right, your turn, and someone would have to get up and just do something dumb. And it was the perfect way to start off the class. You just get out of your comfort zone, realize that like it's not a problem for you to look silly because we're all in this drama class. I think definitely people should take classes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I hopefully don't not go too far down any rabbit holes today. I'm going to try my best. It depends on how many beers we get down, but I do actually have some notes. I should probably grab those too. But yeah, so it sounds like you go through theater, kind of do the typical high school thing of like, oh, I kind of liked theater, or I kind of liked this elective, so I'll kind of maybe see what I can do with education in that. And then did you guys actually get your degrees in, was it EMDA from SOU? Did you finish your degrees or?
No, I'm a 2-time college dropout myself.
Okay.
He's an expert.
I'm really good at dropping out of college.
I'm a one-time. I definitely dropped out once. Failed out, actually, if I'm being honest, from RCC after 2 years. Had to write a letter to be able to have them accept me back. That was a nightmare. But did you graduate or?
3-time dropout.
3-time dropout. Okay, so I didn't know it was a pissing contest. Okay.
Well, I guess I lose then.
Yeah.
So I got my BA in physics from Willamette.
Oh my God. Okay, so we have a physicist in the building.
Physics
folks.
major, religious studies minor.
Oh wow. Okay, so you've got the best of both worlds.
And you did it in 4 years because you're a modern day miracle.
Because I did not have a social life in college. But I like modern day miracles.
Making up for it now. That's wow. Okay, man, that's insane. We'll have to touch on that at some point, if not heavily, then lightly for sure. And so, okay, so then tell me just about, so Us As We Are is what you guys, that's your main show. Sailor Boy Media is more like the name that encompasses you guys and like your sort of brand outside of PBS, or like what you would use if all of a sudden PBS was like, no more. You're like, well, we're still Sailor Boy Media. We're still going to make this content.
It's been a complicated arrangement, and it's been a complicated journey to the
Yeah.
current arrangement.
I don't want to mislead listeners.
Yeah, so I
we'll
guess-
give you shout outs to the proper socials at the end of the day, maybe.
The three of us comprise a company called Sailor Boy Media, but actually just like this month, we finally kind of rolled back the branding on that, and we're just putting Us As We Are out as like
Okay.
kind of the brand that we're behind.
Gotcha,
So you'll
gotcha.
probably hear less and less about Sailor Boy Media for the time being as time goes on.
Sure.
Because we started Us As We Are as a totally independent project on our YouTube channel, which was previously called Sailor Boy Media, where we'd been uploading all of our documentaries and other things for quite
Sure.
a while.
Okay.
We started Us As We Are as this sort of impromptu project right after George Floyd was murdered and the Black Lives Matter
It's
protests
crazy
started.
how many things came out of that.
Totally.
It's even
Yeah,
unrelated
2020.
to yeah, like
Nuts.
it's just like so many things, like so many ideas and so many like new I've heard this story from countless people. It's like, after COVID, after George Floyd, I just felt like I had to change my career. I'm like, wow, that is insane.
It changed the world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for better or worse in a
Yeah.
lot of different ways too, but sorry, go on.
But yeah, so locally here in Medford, there were some pretty prominent protests
Yeah.
that happened surrounding George Floyd, part of the Black Lives Matter movement. And Tripp and I don't really even know why we felt motivated to do it, other than that there was some, it was a bit of a spectacle. It was also, it felt like it was
I was the
historically
same way.
significant.
Yeah.
We were like, this is something that would be important to document. It just felt like we should do it. And so we went out to the protest that happened in downtown Medford on June 1st of 2020 and filmed for a couple of hours into the night, and interviewed people and kind of just did what we still do for Us As We Are. But this was like the first time we'd ever done anything like it. It was
Testing the mics, testing
yeah, I mean, and
seeing
on some
how it
janky
works.
gear, like
Oh,
gear
yeah.
that was not
Were you-
necessarily purpose made. I was literally wired to you.
That's what I thought. This was before we went
Oh,
wireless.
really?
Oh,
yeah, we had
man.
no wireless
yeah.
setup. Like
I
we
mean,
just
that can still work. I mean, you see
Yeah.
people like All Gas No Brakes. You guys watch that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like the most ghetto setup you can possibly imagine. But it's like if you're funny enough, I tend to think like there's a bunch of dials. Is how I think of it. Of like how good you are at certain things. Like everything's a certain attribute, and if you're really good at one thing, it can kind of make up for other things. And so and I usually think about it in terms of like camera quality. Like, okay, people don't need the 6K cameras if they're making really just funny stuff or really educational stuff. For someone like me who it doesn't come as naturally, or I don't have that sort of like same thing, I like to focus more on the quality of the physical picture and then the quality of the questions and the quality of the interview instead of like this, there's all those sorts of things. But with you guys, it sounds like you found a perfect blend. But this was just your first test run.
yeah, June 1st
So-
was basically a test run. But we got some interesting video. It ended up getting a significant number of views. So that was encouraging, obviously, of like, okay, this is
Yeah.
something people seem to value. So let's keep doing it. And so we just started recording things that were happening locally in terms of protests. This was also during COVID, so there wasn't a lot else going on other
Yeah.
than protests. So it was a lot of like political videos for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were doing it independently by ourselves up until the Almeda fire. Now, I was working at SOPBS as like a master control operator and doing like traffic and ops stuff, like scheduling, interstitial,
Okay.
kind of like
Exciting
bottom of the
stuff.
totem pole.
Very exciting things.
And
In other words.
after the Almeda fire happened, like Tripp and I, of course, responded to that by doing video. We didn't really know what else to do.
Well, that was while it was happening.
Yeah, like
Y'all,
while
like,
we were,
I
while
think
the
you
fire
mentioned
was
you,
burning.
like, stayed awake for like 3 days to film. all
Yeah, yeah. It was a haul.
Yeah.
It was a haul for a lot of people. Most people, I think, well, a lot of people had a worse experience of the Almeda fire than we did. But
Yeah, if staying up for 3 days is the worst of it, that's
Yeah.
that's coming
But
out.
and it
on
was
scale.
for the cause, and it was just you felt so called or compelled to do it, to document it, and
yeah,
to-
it just felt like things kept happening. It was like, well, we can't sleep right now. Like there's some,
Well,
a
yeah,
thing
and-
happening that's not going to happen again. It's
Yeah.
an
It's
emergency
kind of like
situation.
with the protests.
Mhm.
Like that
Well,
was
the
like I was
protests,
living in Gresham at the time,
Mm.
and there were like huge protests happening in Portland. That's
Sure.
how I felt. I'm not gonna years from now say that I was like hanging out at home, like just watching
Call of
YouTube
Duty,
or
yeah.
playing video
Right.
games or something while like all this insane stuff was happening. So
yeah.
had to get down there.
I
was
think
the
that's
same way.
something that motivates all three of us is the sense that like life is happening now and I don't want to, be like, I would like to have stories of me on the ground having been there in the situations instead of kind of just like, oh, I was alive when that happened.
Yeah,
It
right.
feels like if something is accessible to you, you should just go
and the
to it.
added element of having a camera and knowing how to use it
Yeah.
too,
Mhm.
and the added element to that of knowing how to interview people too, and talk to people who are there, and you can document it and share that, and
Mhm.
like even more of a precious time capsule in my mind anyways. And that was my exact thinking too when the George Floyd protests happened here in Medford. I was like, and I'd never had the inclination to go out and, I mean, not never, but like it was definitely hard for me. Same thing, like didn't have like that sort of people to encourage me around me necessarily, but you know, had just enough to like, oh, I should do this, you know. But when that happened and I heard about it, I was like, I have to go. And I grabbed my camera, just went down there, started asking questions, filming people. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me personally, like having never done anything like that before. And, but feeling like confident of what I wanted to understand and know about the day. Never made anything with it. I ended up using some of that footage for base stuff, but, you know, that's at the very least, I'm glad I did it for sure. And my plan kind of was to get like an overview of all the stuff you guys have done, and then kind of at the end talk about you guys' actual opinions, because one major theme of the show for the listeners, definitely go watch some of their episodes. I've been brushing up over the last week or two. It's not you guys aren't there to make a point. You're not there to sell an idea. You're not there to convince anybody of anything, which is so refreshingly like pleasing to watch. It's just such a, like, I don't want to use the word dry, but it's just such a nice like presentation of information with very few cuts, like very few anything involved. And it's really interesting to see because you just don't see that, because like everybody has to have like you have to market, you have to put a spin on it.
Most local news media is like, go out, shoot the beginning of an event, got to go back to the station and edit it because it's going to go live at 5 and I need a 2-minute piece. So why would you record a 3-hour event to then, you know, so they're doing those conventional TV packages where it's like, well, we don't have that kind of a deadline, so we can just shoot the entirety of the event.
And take our time editing it even too.
We're doing our shows monthly now, 1/2 hour monthly on PBS.
And
so we get a long time to like process the footage we've got and edit it together into something that's like very interview driven. And I usually don't have to do much in the way of voiceover or anything.
And how much oversight is there? Like how much creative control?
Now that we do it, so the show is like officially presented by Southern Oregon PBS now. Right. So we work with Brad Fay and Jeff LeBeau, who've both been at that station for a long time. They kind of advise us on content and will tell us like, well, you can't put that on TV because like that's illegal. But they give us a huge amount of editorial freedom. Like they really have kind of just given us the instruction, just keep making the show the same way you were doing it on YouTube. And I still upload like clips and stuff to YouTube, but present the full shows on SOPBS.
Okay.
And they don't tell us like, do this story, don't do that story. They kind of just let me pick what I want to go to and what I want to do. The sense I get is that they enjoyed what I was doing on YouTube and they just don't want to mess with it very much. They just kind of are helping guide me into putting it together into a format that's good for television.
Okay. And what an awesome opportunity then, because and the reason I bring that up is because like, as I'm sure you guys know, the climate we're living in, very tense, environmentally, but also politically. It's very tense, and it's everybody, like, I don't see a lot of positions from the center is what I'll say. You don't see a lot of things from the center, and if it is, it's assumed to be one side or the other. And not to say you guys' stuff is necessarily perfectly centered, but it's something that's like very clearly you're talking to people without putting them down for one, like, and you know, there's like the Jordan Klepper show is the first example that comes to me from the Daily Show type of thing, where it's just like, let's go to a Trump rally and make fun of people. It's like, it's entertaining. I'm not going to lie. Like I'll watch it all day and have a laugh, have a chuckle, but it's like, is this really like the most productive thing we could be doing, you know, like as a society, as an entertainment industry, but it's like people want to be entertained. So I get it, but it's only, you know, sifting the divide even more. And so what I was originally saying was like, I wanted to ask you guys at the end about your opinions, your actual kind of thoughts on culture and society at the end. But now that I'm thinking about it, I want to kind of do it as we talk about these videos you're talking about. So in the case of George Floyd, like what were you guys' takeaways from those protests and hearing from people there? I definitely have my own opinions about it, which we don't necessarily need to go over, but I'm happy to. But I'm just curious, like, from behind the camera's perspective, from talking to them perspective, and from editing it or whatever your role is usually, you know, what is your guys' kind of takeaways from, what are some things you learned or came to understand about people in general from those protests in Medford?
Well, here it was, I think,
and even the
say
mask stuff, like if
yeah, I mean, there was a lot going. That was a whole boiling over pot of things.
of emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and so,
as
and
far
there's
as
also like keeping your cool that whole time too. Like
Yeah.
you guys are just,
as far as George Floyd goes, I mean, my opinion is that he was murdered and
Yeah,
that it was
yeah.
wrong.
Right.
Shouldn't have happened. It's good that Derek Chauvin is in prison
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
All
yeah.
of that, like, I think makes sense to me.
yeah. Yeah.
Locally though, like the Black Lives Matter protests are interesting for Oregon because in Oregon we have like such a massively white population and not a whole lot of people of color here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw a lot of the conversations around equality end up actually apply more to like homelessness and stuff like that. It seemed like locally that's where a lot of our discussions kind of trickle down into, because we do have racial divide here, like obviously, and Oregon has a history of being a state where like people of color were not allowed
Sundown
to live.
state, yeah.
It was a sundown state. All of that stuff is like baggage we carry.
Grants Pass.
Oh,
Right.
man.
Just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Grants
But-
Pass exists.
Yeah, the inequality stuff, sort of the finger got pointed at homelessness for me, and so then
Interesting.
we've made a lot of videos that pertain to the homeless issue.
Which I definitely want to talk about too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if off the top of my head I have a lot of organized thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment.
Or not even the Black Lives Matter movement, but more just the protests here in Medford that took place. And just to quickly, I guess, give you guys my take on it, going down there, like I went with a sense of like, I just want to understand like what it's going to sound kind of, I don't know how it'll sound, but I just want to understand what the point of a protest is. Like how, like what is the goal of today for you as a person being here right now? Like what is the outcome we're hoping to achieve? Specifically, because like when I hear about some of these conversations, I'm just starting to hear more and more like vague terminology, like we need to accept, like we need to recognize, or we need to accept, or we need to understand. It's like, yes, those are all good things. It's like, okay, I accept. Now what? Like we're still seeing things. It's like, for me, it's almost like an unsolved thing, and there's a lot of that sort of terminology being thrown out there. And my general takeaway from that particular protest in Medford, which we might be talking about the same one. I don't know if there were multiple days, but that particular protest was very divided in the sense that not all of the people there were there for the same reasons, or for the same intentions, or with the same emotional like closeness to the situation, or I guess really the same intentions. Like towards the end of it, when things started getting really bad, hopefully I'm not repeating too many things you guys already know, but at one point there was like a truck that was almost about to run people over. It did run a couple people over because it got just so out of hand and people got so riled up. And some of the people just were trying to let the truck through at this protest. Some people were just jumping on the hood of the truck and jumping up and down. So I just saw a lot of like, there's no organization here. There's no like cohesive like spirit or vision, or it was just like, somebody put up a banner, everybody showed up type of thing. And even when you're there and hearing people on the megaphone, everybody's got a different like platform. They're trying,
Yep.
and so that, and from interviewing people directly, I got that same message. It was like, I'm here today because, we need to be focusing on this and we need to be focusing on, equal rights and stuff. It's like, great. And then there was some Hispanic people there that said, we're here to just, show our support, show our solidarity, and like just show that all lives matter. And I'm just like, all lives matter. That's usually something that like isn't a good thing. They're like, no, like all lives matter. And I was like, I think if you said all lives matter to some of these other people here, they would take it the wrong way. So it was interesting to see like all of these different perspectives that were like all united on the same patch of square footage, but like such a diverse reasoning, and some that were even not necessarily counter each other, but they were definitely not like meshing. Like some people were very blatant about like, you are disrupting the integrity of the protest. Do not keep jumping on cars. Don't antagonize people. Like I saw a lot of disruption in that way. And so, yeah, again, that was my kind of takeaway, but I'm curious what you guys is like from talking to people. Did you get a similar sense of,
Yeah.
and from any of these protests you guys cover?
Something I've noticed all along through, specifically political events, because we cover a lot of stuff that's totally non-political.
Well, and everything's,
now too.
oh yeah.
I would say some of what we've covered has been like very refreshingly not political,
Yes, right,
but
right.
a lot of it, of course, has been political. And there seems to be a disconnect between the labels and terms that we use to describe like political groups and then the reality that people, like you were sort of suggesting, don't actually subscribe very wholeheartedly to these big like bulk opinion kind of labels. Like I don't really in reality know what like a liberal is or a conservative, because every person I've ever talked to has not fully fit into either of those descriptors.
Right.
And that's something that I just all throughout have been noticing.
Which I think is a very, I guess say no, not many people I think that way. Like it takes this kind of work, almost like this boots on the ground, sort of like actually talking to people, presenting it again in the way you guys are, like very open, very unbiased almost, if you will, and very just, here's what happened. This is us as we are. It's kind of right in the name, you know? Sorry to interrupt you, but
we deal with a lot of protests or just gatherings where there's kind of a protest counter-protest thing going on, like two groups of people who are at odds with each other, like on opposite sides of a road.
The salt shakers, the pepper shakers.
Yeah, salt versus
Oh,
pepper
yeah.
is one.
I was like,
I mean,
no
we were just
way,
dealing
is
with
that a
that
thing?
yesterday.
It's wild.
That's
but,
so awesome. That's
it's
so cool.
In those situations, like, I mean, this generalizes it, but you see a lot of like Group A is calling the other side Nazis and Group B is like the Nazis are calling the other side communists. And it's like neither group is Nazis or communists. Those words are starting to mean less and less as time goes on. It's like, what's a communist? What's a
But every
Nazi?
now and then you have someone mixed in who essentially is a
Well,
Nazi.
yeah.
Like, for example,
We meet
at one of
that
the
sometimes.
anti-mask protests we were at, there was a guy there who I figure can probably be named.
Oh,
at
he
this
can be,
point.
Biome Michael Erickson.
Biome Michael Erickson, who no
He's
longer
well
lives
known.
around here. But he calls himself, oh, I'm not a Nazi, I'm a National Socialist. But
Yeah, don't use that N word on me.
you
he would
know,
say.
right? It's like, I'm not a communist, I'm a
It's not the N-word,
Bolshevik.
bud.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
But so it's disconcerting to see labels like that being thrown around when every now and then you do actually run into a person who just unrepentantly, unironically belongs to that label.
Yeah.
But now it feels cheap to call them that. Like,
Well, and that's a whole other discussion. I'm trying to track down a linguist. If you guys know anybody who studies language, I'm really curious.
I ask him about the etymology of words all the time.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
he usually has it.
In physics, do they teach that now? Is that, or did you just learn all that shit on your own?
so like, yeah, just words. I've always been better with like language than science. I don't know why I
Okay.
majored in physics. I'm just a masochist or something. But like,
Yeah, right.
I always scored way better on like reading and writing than I did on math and science.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just know a lot of words, I guess.
Because my real curiosity is like how, just in general, how words work, but like just how words lose meaning like that is, and how we're at such a point now where words are being held more sacred and people are getting more and more like anxious about definitions changing. Obviously with like the gender stuff, that's probably the most salient example of it. But even with the stuff you guys are talking about, how words are starting to kind of lose their meaning because they're getting so, if not maybe overused, but just like
And misused.
Well,
and misused.
They're used as an insult. And when something is used as an insult, it starts to mean less because you can dismiss it as an insult.
Okay.
If someone calls you a Nazi, but to you the word Nazi is just a sort of fluffy insult, it doesn't
Right.
really mean that much, then you can just think, oh, they're just trying to insult me.
Yeah.
And generally, the right thing to do when someone tries to insult you is to just brush it off.
Just ignore them.
Yeah, but I think
So-
that's how it loses its meaning.
But in some ways it's like a self-correcting sort of thing then, because it loses its meaning. That means like only in academic papers will it be used the right way, and you just know if it's used in general, parlance or whatever, it's not going to be accepted. It might be a slightly more extreme take. I don't know. You guys don't necessarily have to agree with it, but this is a thought I've had, is even labeling somebody a racist, I think, is starting to slightly lose its meaning. Like I've heard that come about so much, and it's in certain situations it's thrown out sort of in that same way. And obviously there's plenty of reasons to use it, but there's also a lot of times where I'm like, no, that's not actually racist. That's just like, there's A, B, and C, and D below that. And yes, the end result might appear like it's the same thing as racism, but I don't think that's the best time to use this word. And so I hear people getting, you hear about just people losing their jobs for different things. I'm talking about more people like in like the New York Times or, big publications and stuff like that, who write things or have this history. It's like, yeah, they did this racist thing and their institution drops them or something. And it's like, it almost seems like if you're called a racist, you need to do exactly that. Just kind of brush it off in that particular context. Again, this is a little bit off topic from this whole thing, but it's something that just on the topic of like you guys talking to all these people and realizing all these insults going back and forth. Just something for the listeners to think about is like those kinds of words are starting to become insults. And yeah, when they're insults, it almost loses it has a potential to lose its actual meaning,
Yeah.
you know?
I
That's
would say,
interesting.
it's like if someone really came hard at us saying that we had done something racist.
And you guys got called retarded, right? Like I just
Yes,
saw
that-
that.
yeah,
at
that
one
has
point, too.
happened.
I
It
want
did
to talk about that too.
I
The homeless
guess-
stuff.
I guess to me, if somebody were really coming
I've
after
done my
us-
homework. Don't you worry.
No, that is definitely a good story. But if someone were really coming after us with some word like that, let's just use racist. To me, it is significant that someone is upset at us.
Yeah.
That's something that I would want to just take it as, okay, clearly someone is unhappy with something we've done. Is that something that we actually need to address? Did we actually do something wrong? The actual specific word that's used, because they've been losing their meaning, isn't
Starts
something
to
that
not matter.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay as much attention to that. But yeah, the fact that someone is mad about something, it means something.
There's
Yeah.
been plenty of times when I felt like that we did make some kind of a miscalculation or did something that was like, oh, like we could do that better in the future, but it isn't agreeing with like what we were accused of. It was just like, oh, we could have like presented the thing better or added more clarification or something like that. We can acknowledge like, oh, we had a shortcoming with something while not being like, oh, I'm racist.
Capital
It's like-
R racist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because like we at one point, one thing that generated controversy was that we interviewed that guy Lewis brought up, Biome Michael Erickson, who is like
Yeah.
the self-proclaimed neo-Nazi, and a lot of people on the internet took that as us like sympathizing with him because we
Exactly.
had talked to him.
And that's what I'm getting
And it
at.
was
is
more
like,
of a thing where we had just like run into him and he was at an anti-vax protest and we knew that this connection between like hateful ideologies and the anti-vax movement existed. It was something
Yeah.
we were aware of. So it was like, how are we not going to interview
Yeah, there's no
him
way we're not going to talk to this guy.
to like show, yeah, he's here. Here's what he believes.
Imagine
and,
that.
You know,
Yeah.
now it stands as
I
another
want to hear from the
primary
other side
source.
because it's interesting. Like, I don't know. That's just, again, one of those things in the general media, not even local news, but you can expand this out to almost any publication kind of has a side now. Sure, there's some that are a little bit more centered, but you just don't, it's just refreshing to see takes from kind of, even if it's not always completely 50-50 down the middle, like you guys are talking to, or at least attempting to talk to nurses who are against the, against the vaccine mandate, or police officers or homeless individuals, and, the lawyers for those homeless individuals who have probably their own, reasons to do what they're doing. And so, yeah, it's just crazy to see you guys interact with this myriad of different people at these protests.
Yeah.
I've met very few hateful people in this time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe Biome is one of the few exceptions where it's like the guy definitely has some hate going on. I'm frankly struggling to think of other examples of people who I would describe as outright hateful or like they.
Well, hate is losing its meaning.
That's
too.
another word,
That's
yeah.
something we talk about all the time. Like
Uh-huh.
you,
Yeah.
Like,
you
what does
see-
hate mean?
yeah, you see ads and stuff that say like we're doing our best to fight against hate, like as though hate is like the dark side of the force.
And
or
that's what I'm
something,
talking about,
you
these
know?
vague sort of things. I'm like, you guys aren't actually like, and another reason it's very salient for me right now is working with an organization like BASE, who needs no introduction, thankfully, because they do a lot of different stuff. But they, working with them closely and talking with Vance on a regular basis and what his visions and goals are for BASE, for the listeners, it's just a community organization for promoting Black community here in Oregon. And they're not an activist organization. Like they definitely don't try to be. They're not trying to pass laws or do any of that kind of stuff. They're purely focused on community. But what I'm realizing is there is, working on these MLK projects in his time compared to now, Vance likes just specifically to do a kind of comparison then and now, like, see, it's kind of the same thing then, the same thing now. And, I agree to an extent. There's a lot of the same sort of messages that we can apply from King's teachings and apply to today. But at the same time, he was, and his movement were asking for like very concrete, specific things. Like, we want to sit at this lunch counter. We want the right to vote without being harassed. We want like very like things we can actually see and do. And now it's like I'm hearing less of that. It's like we just want equity in our system. It's like those are two vague terms you just put together in a sentence. And like system and like granted they do have specific meanings, but it's like there's no, when you use words like that, that means there's no endpoint.
Yeah,
it means
what's
the
equity,
problem
what's
is
the
never.
system?
Yeah, there's never. That means when you can always say that, and it'll never be.
Yeah,
Like that's what I'm getting at. Is that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of people like to go out and protest, at least back in the times when that was
Yeah.
going on frequently, and to bring awareness to these injustices that are happening. But the large majority of those folks have never been to a city council meeting.
Right.
And they've never
That's-
they've never voted on any kind of legislation
Initiatives
with
or-
like an intent to improve
Yeah.
a given situation, which it's nice to bring awareness to, and it kind of fun even
Yeah.
when there's like a big crowd and you're with it's like this community thing.
Yeah.
We're all doing this together.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, in order to carry that through, you're gonna have to attend some things. It's gonna be kind of a boring process. You're gonna have to propose things.
Yeah. Right.
And a lot of people aren't willing to do that work. It doesn't have the same kind of grandeur as like, oh yeah, we're going to go out and do this.
Yeah.
yeah. They want to
The
like burn
pageantry.
it all down and build a new thing that's going to be better. But
Because that's more exciting.
it is
Right.
Well, and
exactly.
and this is just touching on, this could almost be the very end of the podcast. Like this could be something I edit and put at the end because I think it's a really nice final point, but there's tons more we can talk about for sure. But it's just about human nature. I remember hearing about this on John Oliver when he had a bit about infrastructure. And it's like, well, it's just the reason we don't repair our roads is because it's just a lot cooler and more fun to build new buildings and roads, like with fresh pavement. Like we're not going to spend the money to repair things because that's boring. Like we want to do what's exciting.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. So it's almost like a tragedy that that's the case because yes, it manifests itself in all these ways. It's like, well, it's actually kind of easy what we're talking about doing. It's just super boring and dry and no one wants to do it. It's not pleasing. Going to a protest and being really emotionally riled up, that's exciting and that's fun. And that's like a bonding activity. Back in the day we had churches. I'm talking like way back in the day, 1600s or whatever, or any other times, we had reasons to gather en masse as a group of people. And I've heard it proposed that like protests are kind of becoming that thing of like a way of bringing people together for a common thing, but it's just that it's not the most effective way to get something done. And tying back to my reason for going there, it's like, what's the goal of today? It's like, well, I just don't want to see this shit happen ever again. It's like, okay, that's again, like a vague term, but like we all know people are still going to die eventually, like, so what is your actual concrete, and a protest is not what that is. It's to raise awareness for things. And like, there's a good amount of awareness, and yeah, we could always use fresh reminders of things. But when you guys are going to these protests, like my main question was going to be like, how do you keep your own sort of biases from infiltrating? It doesn't seem like it's that tough because you're not really asking these sort of poignant questions from the sounds of it. It seems like you guys just know what you're there to capture. It's just us as we are. Just what are your thoughts? Why are you here? And is that pretty much your thought process going into these things?
I sometimes ask specific questions about specific issues. Like yesterday, we were at the Grants Pass March for Life, which was like a lot of pro-life people.
Okay, this
and
is
then there
abortion?
abortion. And then there was also a counter protest that made up of the Pepper Shakers that was also fairly large. And so it was two pretty
Awesome.
big groups of people, one very big group of people and another like maybe medium-sized group of people marching around Grants Pass, arguing about abortion over megaphones and chanting and doing all that kind of thing. And so with that issue, it's like, that's something I can ask specific questions on. What made you come to your belief in this? Is it a religious thing that makes you believe this? Okay, what's your religion? What's your religious background? Oh, when did you get saved? All of those kinds of questions you can ask them the more that you hear about something. But yeah, overall, the first question I ask everybody is, please introduce yourself and explain what brings you down here today.
Yeah.
And we often don't air me asking that question, but that is the first question I ask everybody. And maybe half the time, that's the only question I need to ask, because a lot of people will just start going and they'll just go down the checklist of things that I would probably want to hear about.
know.
Well, another thing that he does that I think is really, really smart is at the end of an interview asking, was there anything else that you wanted to mention that I didn't ask about?
Yeah.
Because that I think really drives home the point that we're not here to ask leading questions. We're not
Yeah.
here to
Leading questions.
like
that's the term I was
ask
looking
questions to sort of construct our own narrative over their input. We're actually here just to hear what they have to say.
Because I could like ask the salt shaker guy with the sign with the scary looking like aborted fetuses on it. Like, don't you think it's rude to be presenting this in front of all of these people? Don't you
hate
think
those
that might
questions.
traumatize people? And it's like, that isn't going to actually get that productive of an answer out of him, because he's just going to go on the defensive and be like, well, no, I don't think that's rude. No, I think it's important.
Yeah, that's
all
the
he would
objective
say.
at protests, is keep people from like clamming up, because
Yeah.
that's what people will do, especially the like anti-vax, anti-mask protests. With us being the media, we have to be really careful
Yeah.
about.
There's some
Yeah.
suspicion. I mean, yesterday, the March for Life is very prominent on my mind because we just did it yesterday. But there were a lot of people who were like, when we're filming them as they're walking by, they'd be like, "Who are you guys with?" And be like, "We're filming this for SOPBS." And be PBS, and they think it's really weird because in their mind, you know, they're maybe from a conservative background. They have a picture of like PBS as being part of that like liberal
Exactly.
media.
They think of
Yeah.
us as the government media.
Right.
I think that's what a
Right.
lot of people think PBS
So then
is.
They're
They're
like, so you
surprised.
could be good. I don't know what to feel. And that's really interesting. And that was the main thing I wanted to get at, is like, what is it like? Yeah, brandishing the PBS logo as you're walking around these protests, actually genuinely curious about people. Like, this has got to be like a first for PBS as an entire
Yeah.
network, I would think. Like, being willing to listen to the other side. I mean, they've always kind of presented nice, well-rounded stories, but again, like, because we're in such an age where like things are becoming more divided, everybody's kind of taking their side on things. Maybe it's just too early to tell, but like, I really hope they don't come down on you guys, frankly, for being willing to go there and talk to those people. Like, do you ever worry about that or think about it, or is it too early to, you
Well,
just want to keep doing what you're doing?
Fortunately, PBS is a pretty decentralized network. Most
Okay.
TV networks go the opposite direction, where there's like a central office somewhere in a big city, and that is where all of the decisions for the whole network are made.
Okay.
And then that proliferates out to the local stations, and the local stations are allowed to do their thing, but they have to fulfill certain national requirements.
Right.
PBS has a bit of that, but like there's a central office for PBS. There's a national presence for PBS, and they produce a bunch of shows. But actually, all of the show production happens by member stations, of which SOPBS is one of them.
Okay.
And so member stations get a lot of freedom in terms of what they do. Really, the main thing that they harangue us about is making sure that like the PBS logo itself has like no drop shadow, and that you're not putting a stroke on it.
Branding.
And don't change
Just
the colors.
branding.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
please
you
just keep the
can't-
PBS logo itself the same. You can do whatever else you
The
want.
content, though, go talk to that Nazi, but please make
Yeah,
our
they-
image
the,
nice
the
and
only
crisp and sharp.
content decision that goes out over the air that has to be fulfilled is 7 hours of children's programming.
Yeah,
Okay.
That we have to have
There's
that.
an actual law
By
about
law.
that, right?
I
Interesting.
don't know if that's
Or
a
not
law,
a law,
but
but it's, like,
there's a
written into
PBS
their-
requirement.
In their funding.
Interesting.
The kids programming on PBS is like a big thing, and it is
Arthur
part of
and-
the funding. I mean,
Oh,
back
yeah.
when Mr.
Reading
Rogers,
Rainbow and
Dragon
oh,
Tales.
dude. Oh yeah.
Keegan is an Arthur kid.
Oof.
I'm a big Arthur.
Do you guys have
kid.
access to any of those tapes there at the station?
We
The-
still
like
air
the
Arthur.
original tapes.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
Arthur's
Arthur,
still
I'm
on
gonna
air.
have to watch.
A lot of old shows are still on
What
air.
about
and it's
Dragon?
great.
Dragon.
I think
I
Dragon
watched-
Tales is done.
I was big on
Yeah.
Dragon Tales.
Same.
but it
when I
was
little.
great. But yeah, like back in the day when,
Okay,
when
fuck this
Mr.
conversation.
Rogers
Let's talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
when Mr. Rogers secured the funding for PBS from Congress, he did so on the
Wow.
basis of like kids programming. All of the commercial networks are doing these cartoons that involve a lot of violence or bapping each other on the head and stuff. His whole argument was like you need to create some kind of a space for like more innocent and
Educational, too.
emotionally discussive kind of stuff,
Wow.
educational content for kids to be present, and that was the thing that like hooked that. I can't remember his name, but that one really like.
Oh, that really stingy.
Yeah, there was this like
congressman.
stingy, never would give money to anybody kind of congressman, and
Wow.
he was known for being like a real just playing hardball. But Mr. Rogers was basically, I mean, the video is famous, you can find it.
Okay, I'll have to
Mr.
watch
Rogers
this.
melted this dude's heart with this great speech about how the power of educational television for children could change the world, and it
Yeah.
was incredibly inexpensive to do it through PBS.
Okay.
That back in the day, his budget per episode was $30, and
Yeah, he was making all those puppets by
yeah,
hand. And
literally.
just
I
doing
mean,
it himself.
like the guy,
What a
I need to
legend.
watch that
the
documentary. about that
congressman
guy.
asked him like, how do you go about this? And Mr. Rogers was like, well, I do all the puppets and I do all the writing and I make all the thing. And it was just like Mr. Rogers just single-handedly was
just
making
is
the
that
show.
show.
Yeah.
The boss, yeah.
And I think when the
Wow.
congressman, I wish I remembered his name right now, but when he like learned all of that and like how inexpensive it was and how much they were doing on what little money there was, he was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And basically in one of his rare moments where he decided to give funding to something, he gave it to PBS.
And that's just one of those
That
beautiful
created it.
parts of human history that I'm so thankful happened
Yeah.
and stuff. And it sounds exactly like the same thing with Carl Sagan, Bill Nye talking about like the power of education with children specifically. And I remember the story about Carl Sagan like inspiring Bill Nye to start that show because he's like, no, you're really good. Kids are the freaking future, man. Like do it right, like educate them the right way. So how does that feel being part of like, in a sense, that sort of legacy or being part of that network and, broadcasting this sort of content, which of course isn't for kids, but
Yeah, it's very full circle for me because I grew up on PBS, and when the job opportunity to work for SOPBS came up, that was like, I basically was like, okay, I'm going to drop out of college and go get that job, and then I'm going to start making YouTube videos, and maybe I can turn this into a thing where I produce content for PBS in like 20 years. It worked out a lot faster than
2 years later.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
But
speed run.
It was very meaningful to me to be able to go and work for a PBS member station because that's like, I don't know, I think that this is the meaning of my life, or at least for now, that's what it feels like. It's like, wow, okay. Growing up on that stuff and then getting into it, it's like you said, it's sort of being part of this legacy that I find to be like very meaningful and important to me.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, like the breadth and the depth of stories you guys have covered, is insane. Just so the listeners know, I mean, I should have the list. I'll grab it in a second. But I mean, you guys have talked to people who believe in extraterrestrials. You've traveled to Eastern Oregon where there's literally nothing. Nothing exists. There's no towns. There's no people. There's no civilization. It's just I-5 and nothing.
There's not even I-5.
Yeah, exactly. There's no interstate.
But you'd be so surprised what you'll find out.
I know, man. It's insane. It's incredible. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Favorite side of the state?
I've often had the thought of like, I would love to go similar to what you guys are doing, just go explore it, just go drive around the deserts or those things. I've been to Lakeview a number of times. My family is from, or my mom's family is from there. They have grave sites there, so we'll go and visit now and then, but that's about as far as I've gone or ventured. But
that's
like,
right when it starts to get good.
Go
further.
I could talk for days.
Go farther
about
north,
this.
I bet. No, I'm like, I would love to go to some of those Eastern Oregon towns and talk to those people and be like, what do you think about the rest of the state making all the decisions for your life? You're out here in the middle of freaking nowhere. Like, if somebody says you're from Oregon, they're going to assume you're Portland, maybe Medford.
Maybe
like,
Eugene. Or
maybe,
something.
yeah, or Salem or whatever. But like, Oregon is literally one city, so how do you feel living in outer Portland, basically all the way out here?
This is a big thing we want to do. Is we want
all the red, districts and stuff out there in the middle of nowhere.
The future Idahoans.
Future Idahoans. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, we want
State
people.
of Jefferson, Idahoans. It's going to be one like big red band that goes from Northern California to Idaho pretty soon.
But yeah, we want people on the dry side, which is like the part of Oregon east of the mountains, just to feel like they have representation in public media and like they have a voice, because we have had people be genuinely surprised, even around here, conservative people, when they see that we're representing them in public media. And it's always a little sad, frankly, because that's not something you see from most people.
Well, yeah, sad is one word. There's probably even stronger words. It's like, I truly feel like, again, not to make it super deep political in the weeds, because I do want to talk about what you guys do, but it's just, this is what you guys do. It's like you're giving voice to everyone without a bias. And that's just, again, I'm going to keep beating this drum until people get sick of hearing it, but it's just so refreshing. Like, it's so interesting to see. And yeah, I think that's a really strong, like, passion you guys have is going and seeking those stories and seeking those perspectives just to present it as us as we are, and I think that's the exact ticket to bring us closer together, is to just have conversations or realize those people on the other side are just other people. I have a story I often talk about Daryl Davis. You guys, have you seen his TED Talk?
He's the black man who
drummer.
would go to the KKK rallies and try to befriend KKK members, and has like a long laundry list of people he's converted out of the KKK.
Converted out, and that's the crux of the story. It's like, what can you think of that's more powerful than disrobing a KKK member, getting him to admit the fault of his ways after how many ever years he was a part of it, and realizing, you know what, you can have my robes. Like, the atomic bomb, like, I just get chills thinking about it every time. I'm like, dude, this guy, like, he befriended a KKK guy as a black man. He goes to the rallies. They let him go. They have dinner together, and you hear his story and his presentation. I'm like, how is not everyone doing this? Like, this is so easy what he's talking about doing. We're just so quick to get riled up and attack and just like state our opinions. And I get it. It feels really good. Don't get me wrong. I love going on Twitter and just roasting people for having the wrong idea. But I mean, like, just take that extra step of just like, okay, let's just talk. Like, let's just talk to people. Like, I've actively been seeking out, and not even seeking out, but just naturally recognizing people who are more conservative in my life. I've always been more liberal personally, but it's just like I need more people that I disagree with in my life, or to an extent. Like, I just need different opinions in my life. Like, I need to hear other things. And sure enough, I've learned things that I'm like, oh, wow, I did not see it that way at all. But that is really, really interesting.
You've got like a practically 50-50 divide in
Here.
America. And here
yeah.
too, I mean, where we live, that 50-50 divide is represented pretty well. In the town centers, you get a lot of liberal people. Out in the sticks, you get a lot more conservative people. And I guess I've always felt like when you have like a 50-50 divide, there's just no way that 50% of the population is completely wrong about everything.
Like, both sides are right and both sides are wrong.
It just doesn't make sense. So it's like, I too come from a more liberal background overall. And so a lot of my approaches to things are very liberal, like on LGBTQ and abortion and race. It's like, I've got all the fairly liberal opinions personally.
Yeah.
But I don't think that conservative people are just naturally like bad or wrong about
Nazis.
it all. Like, yeah, they're not Nazis. That's reductive to
or
think
that they're
they are.
brainwashed. I think that's a
Right.
sad thing that I hear some people say too, is that like, oh, they don't mean anything wrong. They just don't understand. They're just ignorant. It's very patronizing the way some people talk about people like that.
Yeah, you know, you've got like QAnon, and that exists, and that's really big and bright and loud, and so it's easy to focus on. But you also have just like, you know, middle-aged Catholic man from Grants Pass who is pro-life, except, if the girl's been raped or it's incest, you should go ahead and have an abortion. It's like, that's like this nuanced little thing that's happening. It's like,
everybody's
that guy
nuanced.
is
like,
not a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, but it's just so easy to kind of do those labels. And so have you guys ever had a moment where, if not completely changed an opinion or changed of heart on an opinion, but like just a real kind of like slap in the face wake up call? Like, are there any moments like that stand out to you from any of these interviews that you've done? Don't feel like you have to answer that instantly. It can be even something you chew on, but
Well, I guess what I'd say is, and this might be part of why like I was attracted to do this kind of video work, is that I don't feel like I've ever actually held that many opinions super strongly.
that's interesting.
Like, I always have been
I feel the
aware
same
of the
way.
fact that it's like, what do I know? Like, I think I have a sense there's maybe a truth that I would prefer, or like a lifestyle that I would like to live above another one. But it's like, I've never felt so strongly about most things. You know, it's like, I feel strongly about equality, but that's a vague term. It's like, I don't have like big policy things that I think should happen, and this is absolutely my take. It's like, I've just never
9/11
felt...
was an inside job, and
you know, this conspiracy is real. They have chemtrails, and they're trying to like indoctrinate all of us and brainwash us.
But
It's
even-
like, I don't believe those types of things strongly at all. I don't have beliefs in that way.
Yeah.
I've been a very like open person, and just aware that it's like, well, I don't have all the answers, so I'm open to hearing what other people have to say, even while having a hunch at what my opinion might be.
Yeah, but even you in your first sentence, you kind of said like, I've never had strong opinions, which just also implies like you can have opinions that you feel strongly about, but you're not strongly attached to them. Like, anybody could come along and change your mind with the right evidence and the right explanation. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Sure.
no need to like identify with an opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah, make it part of who you are.
Yeah, it's like, without that, I'm not me.
Yeah.
It's like, that's where you start getting the tug of war dug in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, part of it is that, like, I know I come from a somewhat privileged background, sort of like upper middle class. Both my parents are doctors. You know, we went to LaSalle Catholic College Preparatory.
Yeah,
But,
that says it right there.
right
A lot of
there.
people probably tuned out, to be honest, right?
Yeah,
when
we
that-
didn't. We
right
didn't
when
have
you
to
guys
wear
said that.
ascots or funny little uniforms.
You did?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
We
okay.
didn't. No.
Got some listeners back.
It was not like a boarding school. But I think that for me, that kind of plays into it. Like, I've always had this impression that it would kind of take a lot to actually affect me enough that I would like need to have a strong opinion. Like, to people like us, it doesn't matter nearly as much who gets elected president as it might matter to like a black trans woman or something.
right,
So
right.
I've never really had the impression that I need to be out there fighting for some opinion. I feel like with the situation I'm in, the best thing is to do is listen
Mm-hmm.
and to bring other people in on
Mhm.
that listening.
Yeah, I think I identify with that purpose a lot. It's just like, it's not really my place in most discussions to be the big opinionated guy with like, this is what we need to do, folks. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So in place of that, I think that my motivation is to go out and hear what other people have to say, broadcast that, let it be intellectually stimulating for myself, give myself thoughts, try to come to a better understanding of what the truth of things is, and
Yeah.
maybe spread that to other people a little bit, try to be helpful in the discourse.
Yeah.
Because the discourse is happening. I don't know if I have much to contribute to it in the way of like, here's my opinion, but just
Well, yeah.
aiding in its process.
Yeah, and you guys don't even have to give your opinions. Again, to tie it back to the beauty of it, like you are there to just present it, which alone is more than most people are willing to do. Present a whole, explanation of an event that's going on in the area. And yeah, you also touched on the fact that we live in a place that's very 50-50. I think that's also, like, I feel pretty blessed, maybe not the best word, but to live in a place like Southern Oregon because it's so 50-50. Like, we have such a perfect blend. Like, any city you go to is going to be pretty blue. Anywhere rural is typically going to be red. We're like a half city, half rural, almost like area. And
Rural metro. I
exactly,
love that word.
rural metro.
I
Yeah,
haven't heard that before. I like it.
the more I've like come up and realized like how, you've all seen like the gerrymandering charts and like how our nation is like these little splotches of blue and then like all red basically. But like 90% of the world lives in cities. So like it's still kind of 50-50 at the polls type of thing. But yeah, here it's very 50-50 locally. So like it's such a like enriching place to be because you're getting all of this diversity. You get, all the Trump people like way out kind of in the sticks. And then you also hear from people from the other side of it. And it's not even all the way out in the sticks. Like there's, you could have conservative neighbors like just living right next door to you, and it's very common. And I'll hear people like even someone like my mom, like people I respect a lot, are like, you have to make sure you vote because we can't let that other side win. We can't let them have this. We can't let them. And I'm just like, you have been brainwashed a little bit. Like like that's just a shame to hear that. Like there's worse things to be than not voting for Biden. Like there's worse things to be than a non-Biden voter. Like that shouldn't be like, we shouldn't be putting so much emphasis on like what decisions they made. It's like
the most important votes are who's going to be your mayor, who's going to be on council, and
with the stuff that nobody pays attention to.
Oh, they totally have so much more influence over your life.
Vote locally, think globally.
Yeah, right.
County commission and state government is so important to our everyday
This
lives.
last governor election, that was a nail biter. I've never paid more attention to politics than in the last governor election.
Yeah. It's like, this is going to really matter. It's like between Christine Drazan or Tina Kotek, it's like that is going to make two different Oregons, and we will experience a different reality either way we go. So the local stuff is way more important and simultaneously a lot less based in this like Democrat versus Republican, conservative versus liberal duality thing. There's a lot more nuance in local politics. Basically, the more local you get, the less it's about those things. So that's the politics I tend to prefer. And then just one more thing I wanted to say about like
is there anything else you didn't get to say that you'd like to say?
Yeah,
I'll ask that at the end.
Just making the show to help aid in the discourse. What I really hope to do is like improve the discourse. Cause like yesterday, we were doing a video about the abortion debate. And in that debate, just as an example, you hear a lot about you want to kill babies. And then the other way, you hate women. And it's like, neither of those takes is accurately portraying the side that they're arguing against.
It's like a ridiculous straw man.
I think that we need to have this argument. The abortion debate is very important. And it's like, we got to hash this out. We have to argue.
Yeah.
But it would be good if we were arguing from a place of understanding what the other side actually means. Like when they talk about things, and while you can find people who it's like, maybe they hate women or maybe they want to kill babies. I think those are really rare examples.
Definitely.
They're not representative of even 1% of us in America or in Oregon. And so like with yesterday's video, which will come out on February 4th, we were talking to people and hearing a lot about their personal experiences and the reasons for their belief, and nobody was like, I want to do it because I would like to control women. I don't want women to have a choice in this matter.
Right.
And then on the other side, there was no religious. Well, I just hate pregnancy. I just want to. I really would rather there be less
Yeah, I just
babies
love
born.
dead babies.
It was
It's
all of
not
these
something you're
other
doing.
reasons
Huh,
based on people's
interesting.
emotions and experiences, and like it's really complicated what brings people to their conclusion about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to know my opinion about abortion, I would say it should probably remain legal because it seems to be so divisive.
Yeah.
It's like the government probably should step back on those issues where it clearly comes down to like an ethical boundary for people and it's
Yeah.
very personal like this.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we're going to keep having the cultural argument one way or the other. And if we're going to do that, I would like it to be from a place of like honesty and understanding for what your enemy believes. Because
Yeah.
just thinking they hate babies and arguing against them on that, it's like that isn't going to work because they're just going to hear you thinking that about them and go, well, that's not right. And so easy to dismiss the
Easy
other
to
side
dismiss,
because
yeah.
they're clearly dismissing you.
That's
And-
what I liked a lot about a relatively new question that you threw in there yesterday was like, can you understand the other side a little bit? Can you steel man for the other
Okay.
side and see
What
where
was
We
they're
got great
coming from?
responses to that.
Yeah.
Everybody
Really?
could understand. Everybody
Really?
was like, "Oh, I could totally see like if you were a pro-life person, I could totally understand why you would want to have the right to an abortion." They would all
Okay.
say it's very personal, and same thing with the like pro-abortion people, is they would say, "Oh, I totally get why people would come to this
Because they don't want
belief."
babies to die. Basically.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
and they have
either
they're
what is
raised
your-
in a religious
So what is your
background and
takeaway
stuff.
from knowing that? Like hearing people almost have a sense of dissociation of like, yeah, it totally makes sense, but it doesn't make any sense. It's like, what is your sense of like how do people hold in a, or do you maybe think of it as like that's the first time they'd actually thought about it because you asked them, so maybe that's like the seed you planted to hopefully get them to come around.
I can't say either way with any of those people. Like, you know, maybe that was the first they thought of it. Maybe they think of it all the time. Maybe I think most people are very nuanced and
It's just
like
that,
me,
that they're
you
at
can
a
hold an
protest,
opinion.
so they
Like I think abortion
like they
should
have
be
to take a
legal,
side.
but I also think that it is complicated and that there are real ethical
Yeah.
questions with it. Just because I think it's legal doesn't mean it's like, or
okay.
that I don't. Let me rephrase that. Just because I think it should be legal doesn't mean I think that it's like a great A+ decision to make. It's like
Yeah.
when you get to the actual
Yeah, smoking
ethical
cigarettes is
conversation-
legal. Like
Yeah,
it's
and
all-
should
it's
be
complicated,
legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But should you smoke cigarettes?
Yeah, like, but should somebody? The other question is, should someone have a right to ban you from smoking cigarettes if you want to, or to wear a seatbelt if you don't want to? Like, those are the questions. Like, or wear a helmet, or it's like, oh, I can kind of see, like, yeah, I think generally we should be wearing seatbelts, but like, I can kind of see the libertarian sort of perspective of like, no, I have my liberties,
You
have
can't
yours.
legislate me.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I'm curious about is like when it comes to these mask mandate protests you guys do, like a thought that I had coming away from all this, you know, it's kind of the same thing. We all lived through COVID, so I won't make anyone revisit all that stuff that happened. But like,
We just got out.
yeah, exactly. There was a lot of just like uncertainty as far as what the best thing to do is and whether or not we should force people to do certain things and in what situations we should force people to do certain things. And like, I can't really fault anyone almost, you know, certainly the CDC has been blamed for, you know, and Fauci and people have been blamed for like miscommunicating things or exaggerating things or embellishing things or not saying things enough. And then on the other side, you know, people have been criticized for spreading lies, but you know, to an extent, it's like, we were all so confused and so riled up because of things like George Floyd too, compounded on top that like, to an extent, I can't really fault anyone almost. Like, sure, some people are more responsible.
I think fault the grifters.
The
always
grifters, yeah.
always fault the grifters.
Oh,
because
sure, yeah.
There's real
there's
grifting going
almost
on.
always someone making money off of
Off of
something.
that.
When lies are being spread, there's usually someone profiting, but it's almost never the people we were talking to outside the Capitol in Salem or the people in Ashland Plaza. They're
People
not
who
the
are
people
actually affected.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. They're not the people like selling merch.
Snake oil.
Like yeah, exactly.
And what I came away though with, like, as far as the vaccine and forcing people to get it, the argument that I never heard anyone push back on the anti-vaxxers was, which I was curious to see if you guys were going to, but again, it's almost kind of refreshing that you didn't. I was pleased to just kind of hear their thoughts and stuff, but it's like, you know, nobody should force me to take a vaccine. It's like, okay, on the surface, my body, my choice. I was like, great, you're hijacking the left argument. I love it, man. Good
interesting.
reverse psychology. That's awesome. But like, you could also say, nobody should force me to stop at red lights. Like if I look
Right.
and nobody's coming,
Yeah, it's like how far
should
can you
get to
take
go.
that logic?
yeah,
Before
exactly.
it gets just ridiculous.
And I've said, and people have said that to me, like the government shouldn't have any choice. I was like, well, they tell us to stop at stop signs, right? Are you going to listen to them then? It's like, well, I mean, it's like, and they tell us to, use your blinker signal, and they tell us you have to drive at this speed at this time. Like they already control your life, man. Like
Sure.
we're already, it's just that this is a new thing that you're being imposed on. So I wish more people on that particular side of the argument in that case would think of it that way. But, at the end of the day, like a lot of these things are just so nuanced, like you guys are talking about, and to kind of, unless you have more thoughts on that sort of stuff, to kind of steer away from that. I also want to talk about some of the other videos you guys make, which, like you were mentioning, are less controversial, refreshingly. And one of the big ones I got to know about is the alien stuff. I didn't actually watch the video because I was trying to find it. Like I saw a clip of it on the Instagram, but when I was scrolling through YouTube, I was like, I want to watch this one at least before, because I'm just fascinated by people who believe. Have you guys heard about the guy now who's like becoming famous for painting these paintings of having sex with aliens? He said
What?
as a kid, he
No.
yeah, this is
Wait, as a kid?
yeah, he said I haven't read any actual articles. This was like a Vice News post because he's becoming viral is what it is on TikTok.
Okay.
He's making paintings of him having sex with aliens, female. It looks like literally a female body with an alien head. So it's like, come on, man. Like no one's gonna. But you got to just assume it's the next wave of just some old guy thinking. And he's like, yeah, I grew up on my parents' farm in Georgia, somewhere way out in the outskirts, and yeah, I used to wander out there. And like one night this happened multiple times. He said, so it's like a kind of a typical story, if you will. But people who believe in aliens and and even further that they've been abducted by aliens just fascinate the hell out of me. And I have a couple friends who are flat earthers too, a whole other thing we could talk about. But like that type of psychology just really fucking fascinates me. And same thing, like I would love to have those people as actual friends. Like I would love to just get to know those people. And if at the very least, like win them over to an extent where they start to come back to the rational side once they realize I'm just their friend trying to help them, but also just to learn from them and like why they believe the things they do. And so what were you guys' kind of takeaways from, and where did you go, first of all? Because I'm just giving the audience like no feedback at all. I saw in the video it said undisclosed location, so I don't know if you can say where you were.
It wasn't like a CIA base or
Okay.
anything. It was just that like it was
They didn't
off of
wanna-
Dead Indian Road,
Oh,
but
so
it was
not
in a
even that
place
far. Okay.
where I think the people who were setting up the event just didn't want like a bunch of people showing up there or something, because it was
They do it pretty regularly.
Oh
yeah.
wow, okay.
Me
How'd you
using the
hear
term
about it?
undisclosed location was pretty tongue in cheek, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, okay, so this is like, but it did at least show that like they wanted to keep it kind of private or whatever.
Yeah.
How did you guys hear about it?
It was Tripp's old landlord was one of the people
just
involved.
pure serendipity.
There you
Well, I was going to the Minute Mart by our house one afternoon, and lo and behold, there's Richard, my old landlord when I first moved to Oregon. And I was like, oh man, how's it going? And we kind of had a chit chat and caught up, and he told me about the event, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. We're actually doing this show. We need like another event for the show. Would it be okay if we did that? And he's like, yeah, we're doing it on Sunday. I'll come out. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay.
And
Wow.
pitched it to Keegan and Lewis, and it's like, oh yeah, we have to do that.
Hell yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
gonna not?
And what was the event?
It was a CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, meditative contact event, and it's these people who
just a
follow.
CE5
Oh,
meditative.
a CE5
event.
Not a
Classic.
CE4.
We've
but
all been there.
Yeah, right.
What it is?
I think my friend in high school tried to get me involved in one of those. An MLM. No, I'm just kidding. Had to go to his house. He gave me a presentation.
There's this
C5.
guy who's nationally famous now named Dr. Stephen Greer, who makes these documentaries about how you can contact extraterrestrially piloted UFO spacecraft by meditating in a certain way and also
Transcendental
using
meditation.
Yeah, it's a form of transcendental meditation. It's this interesting hybridization between very like Ashland, Oregon-esque hippie stuff and an interest in outer space and UFOs and stuff. So they went up to this field and they did this meditative practice to try and lure in a UFO. You can watch this documentary. I think it's on Netflix or No, it's on Amazon. That
Yeah.
was it. Yeah. The documentary on Amazon, it's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and it's hosted by this Stephen Greer guy. And he just explains this process and how all over the nation now people have been able to contact UFOs by doing this meditative practice. And there's all kinds of video of like,
Is he a grifter? Like, does he make money off?
hard to say.
I mean,
Okay.
I assume he does make money, but I think the reason I wouldn't call him a grifter is it doesn't seem disingenuous.
He
like, it
seems
seems
to
like
really
he genuinely
genuinely
believes what he's
believe.
talking about, and that he
Okay.
doesn't.
That's
yeah.
almost
And at
not
the
as
end
bad.
of the day, yeah, it's not like it's malicious.
And he's
It's
not
not a
leading
cult.
people to be hateful. He's not leading people to like, mail bombs to the government or anything.
Yeah.
He's just saying like aliens are out there. We need to contact them, and meditation is the way to do it.
As far as I know,
and
none
meditation's
of
a good thing. So I mean,
Exactly.
absolutely.
If all he's doing is getting people to meditate, then
willingly, yeah.
As far as I'm aware, there's also no money involved in just the practice of if you want to download his app and go through his guided meditation stuff. I'm pretty sure all of that is free. You might have to fact check beyond that.
I think like the premium app is a one-time purchase, $10, and that's it. So it's not like a subscription every
Yeah.
month.
But anyway, what the people all said, like we didn't see any UFOs when we went up there.
Dang it.
I won't say one thing or the other about if there's UFOs that can be lured in by transcendental meditation. But what all the people said, and I would agree, was that it was a very fun experience. Everybody got to hang out together and be in this beautiful place and do all these interesting things, and it was a fun time. And that was the big takeaway that they all had, was like, it doesn't really matter if we don't see any UFOs. That's not really what we're worried about at the end of the day. We just want to have a good time. And that was what they did. They had a good time.
Yeah, and human beings need rituals. Like at the end of the day, some more than others I've found, but that's again like what kind of religion or church used to be for people, and now it's like I'm seeing that like as we're sort of becoming more atheist as a society, or if not atheist, then like non-secular or whatever, as a society, agnostic, yeah. Then we kind of are trying to find that in something else, and for some people it is this political stuff, it is this identity stuff. I've realized, I've heard somebody put it as like the wokeness is kind of becoming a religion. It's sort of taking on that spirit of like, there's the original sin of you're privileged and white or whatever, like that's almost an original sin. Again, this is probably a little bit into the weeds, but just something for people to think about. But again, that's an extreme. But I think even with something like this that you guys are talking about, this sort of just little ritual, it's like, yeah, it just feels good to come out and bond with people. And like, we all have a little bit of a fascination with this. And it's like just belonging to something higher than yourself, or feeling like you're transcending in some form to a being higher than yourself, and sort of surrendering yourself. Like, I've heard a lot of people explain it to me that way. And with the flat earth, it's the same thing. It's flat earthers. I mean, that's like a common thread I've found. If you dig deep enough, it's like, honestly, man, it's just like, there's a big world out there, and like, it just kind of feels good, paraphrasing, but it's like, it kind of feels good to just sort of like accept that some like things are just, people are controlling things that you can't. And I think everybody just has a different way of doing that, really.
Yeah.
And this sounds like maybe just one of those ways. Like, did you guys end up learning like anything from that, or how did you go when you went to it? How did you anticipate you wanted to like present it?
I wanted to present it from the get-go the same way I present all the other ones, because I know that there's a way to like make fun of people like that, or put them down.
Exactly.
And say, oh, what kooky people for believing this crazy thing, and blah,
That's
blah,
the
blah.
power of editing. Like, you
And
can do anything you want with the same footage. It's fascinating to me.
And I just wanted to give them a fair shake, basically, because the way I saw it was that, like, at worst, it was a religion. No offense to religion, but it's like, at worst, that's kind of what I saw.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is basically a religion.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, there's lots of religions. Like, just because they're a smaller group doesn't make their thing, if it is a religion, any weirder than like drinking the blood and eating the body of Christ every Sunday. It's like,
Right.
that's a fairly gnarly way to think about religion too. It's just more popular. And so, it's like, it gets accepted as normal a lot more often. So I wanted to just present them as who they were and let it stand for itself. And, I think I am trying to portray people in the show positively. Like, I want people who, like, if they're on the show and they later watch it, I want them to feel good. Like, after they've seen it, feel like I gave them a fair shake, not feel like, hey man, like, you totally misrepresented me just to make fun of me or something.
And do
it's
you
like,
guys,
that would make me feel bad.
Yeah. Do you guys get feedback from the show from either people who were interviewed it, or?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have asked it that way. This is me not knowing how to ask questions well. I'm learning. What is the feedback you get from people? Obviously, you get
Everybody
feedback.
loves it.
Okay.
Everyone.
Perfect.
No, it's
I,
not
actually,
really-
though, I think most people who are on the show
A large
are
majority.
complimentary of
Yeah.
their appearance.
Okay.
They feel like it was a fair shake.
Okay.
And we get a lot of, I mean, when we did the Phoenix Rising celebration, which is in the same episode as that contact, the UFO contact thing,
Okay.
the city council of Phoenix was massively appreciative of us going to their Phoenix Rising celebration, talking about fire recovery. They played the video that we had shot in their city council meeting, and they were just like super excited about the fact that we had done like a 7-minute long story about their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get a lot of, well, not a lot, but when we get feedback, I think it tends to be of that nature.
And including on like YouTube or any of the various platforms, people who weren't in it or a part of it at all, is the feedback kind of the same? It's like, oh, this was a nice.
It's mostly positive, like from just general comments, but there's negativity. I mean, it's the internet, so there's always going to be people out there who don't like it. I think a lot of the time, like when we were talking about before, a lot of media is very like leftist or right wing. People are used to that, and they're in their camp, and when they see something that isn't that, they misidentify it as being like the enemy's propaganda, and they don't like it at that point. So we get some of that. I mean, I've been accused of being a propagandist, a
just
sympathizer,
bad
a hate
journalist.
platformer, bad journalist. Like I get tons of that all the time.
Do you think of yourself, or do you guys in general think of yourselves as journalists?
I
A
do
form
keep
of
a
journalist.
journal.
Well, he journals. I also do a bullet journal, but no.
joking.
I just mean that in the sense of like, again, you're like not trying to dig for a story like a typical journalist is like super hungry. Like, no, there's something here. Like the pig looking
Like
for the truffle.
investigative
Yeah, like
stuff.
investigative. It's just like, so maybe it's not even the right word, journalism, but like, how do you think of what it is you're doing? Here was the first question I wanted to ask that I completely forgot at the beginning. This will be a note for the editor, because that guy sucks. Me. What is your guys' like sales pitch? If you weren't doing this for PBS, if you were going to try to publish this to a huge network, for a lot of money, what would be your sales pitch for Us As We Are? Like, what is your
Real-time monthly documentary series to show the community itself.
okay?
Show the community to itself.
Yeah,
I can say that again if you want for the editor.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess elaborate. I guess just slightly. Like what? Tell me what I'm going to see, or what I'm going to take away, or what I'm going to feel watching this.
You're
as
going to
a producer.
see a lot of people express opinions and beliefs that you really agree with. And then you'll also see a lot of people express opinions and beliefs that you hardcore disagree with. And at the end of the show, you hopefully won't really know what to think of the show itself. And you'll just have a bunch of thoughts about the people you saw in the show. And I hope people are not thinking about Us As We Are, the TV show, when they're done watching it. Like, I want people to feel more like, okay, they want to now be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll write a comment. And I think that works. Like, a lot of the time we get comments that are direct responses to people in the episodes.
Right.
Yeah,
Rather
like how
than
could he
your
say
show.
that?
Yeah, the guy at
Ridiculous.
5 minutes in is totally crazy.
Yeah.
We get some of those kinds of comments, and that's actually nice to see. It's like, okay, this has forwarded the discourse.
But I think another important thing is that we include the things that that aren't like opinionated, that aren't like political events or protests or anything like that. Because I think it is important that people see that all these people that you see protesting or going to a political rally or something, in the next segment in the episode, when we're going to like a model train exhibition, that's the same
Like,
community. These are the same people.
Yeah.
It's
That's
it's
interesting.
still
how you
in the
fuse
backyard.
those together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so Southern Oregon, like, is that kind of where you plan to keep it, or like, are you guys long time committed to the area at this
We're
point?
slowly hoping to expand the area that we are able to cover. Like this, in previous years, it's been almost entirely Rogue Valley and Medford metro area. Now we're doing kind of the whole of Southern Oregon and hopefully a little bit of Northern California too. Basically, the broadcast range of the television station, Southern
wow.
Oregon PBS.
Oh, so you're not even to the full broadcast range necessarily.
Not yet. We just did a few stories in Grants Pass for the first time because we've kind of been given the funding and the ability to go out that far now. And,
Oh, wow.
And sort of a good reason to start going out that far. We'd like to go out further. We'd like to do stories in Lakeview. We'd like to do stories
Yeah.
as far as Roseburg and then as far south as like Weed. We want to do a bunch of stories about the Klamath Dams being removed.
Okay, so you guys actually have like a journal.
There
I mean,
is
you guys
is
have a
plans for
list of
stories,
things.
yeah.
Okay,
We
gotcha.
know like not everything we're going to cover. Some of it is going to crop up at the very last second, but we have a pretty big list. It's actually really just mentally, and I have a bullet journal where I like write out events in the future. Some of them are written down there. Some of them are just more vague. We don't know exactly when they're going to happen, but we know we want to cover them at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're expanding our reach a little bit, but I do think that Southern Oregon and specifically the Rogue Valley is going to be a hub, at least for me, for a while. I found this to be an excellent community for doing this type of journalism if you want to call it journalism. Really, I call it more, it's documentary, I think.
Yeah.
Because people will argue about what journalism is. They'll argue about what reporting is. They don't tend to argue as much about documentary.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting together real-time events into a longer
But
form.
even
kind of thing.
documentaries are like biased almost. They
A lot
have
of time.
a lot of the time. Like they have a point almost, and maybe they need to be subdivided into further genres because I think there is a, if not demand, there's a real need for like documentaries like what you guys are producing, of just like a presentation of things, even if it's not the most riveting, emotionally exciting stuff. It's very like just uncut, just again like just raw, just straight information through a tube, which like a lot of people are not accustomed to. So I could see, that's probably a benefit of being on PBS, is like maybe people are just expecting to watch that kind of thing there. But I could see it being harder to get that out, like your guys' stuff out into the culture for people to digest and watch. Do you think about that often? Like, should we be optimizing this for YouTube? Should we be optimizing for social media more, like doing vertical short things, cuts?
And that's
punches?
funny you mentioned that, because
We're
that's
getting into
kind
that
of what
right now.
last week was for Keegan.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we've like the transition happened in June of last year, where we went from it being a primarily YouTube project to a primarily PBS project.
Broadcast. Yeah.
And so that might be why you couldn't find the UFO episode. You got to go to sopbs.org/usasweare
Okay.
to find our full length stuff now.
Gotcha.
And that upfront took a lot of work. There was a learning curve to changing the format, doing multiple segments per episode, packaging an episode all together to be this like complete beginning to end narrative thing with like a nice intro, nice outro, all of that stuff. But now I've kind of got my, I'm on the saddle when it comes to making those. And so now I'm kind of getting back into like, all right, pulling excerpts and cool moments, things that seem like they're the best, or maybe they'll go viral or just should be enjoyed by a wider group of people.
Yeah.
Starting to put that on YouTube again. And then I have now been doing like scan and pan to make vertical versions of a lot of the segments to go on Instagram to try and play with the reels a little bit more. I don't like, for the record, I really don't like vertical video. I think it's gross.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and just the whole Reels
me.
setup where it's like you can't scrub through the video, you can't restart it, you can't.
They literally removed features from Instagram to like
make it
corner
more...
you into doing vertical only, and like I almost quit Instagram, but it's like I have too much history on that platform to abandon it.
It's another topic we could have a whole 6-hour discussion on because I'm actually, like I said, talking to this guy who's helping me with just business consulting in general for video. He also does kind of marketing, talking to a couple guys that do marketing, and it's like, hey man, you have to make vertical stuff now if you want to make commercial video content. And it's like, it's okay if like your dream aspiration is to like make films and documentaries of high production value for Netflix, blah, 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 this and that. But like to get started at the ground level, you're going to have to just like flip that camera this way and just do it that way. And I'm realizing that even doing the stuff for base, I'm like, man, I'm trying to film all this stuff high quality with these video cameras, come capture their events, but it's just such a thing to lug around when I know that I could film this stuff with my phone, make a reel that's going to Instagram and YouTube and all these platforms are going to like even better than what I'm making anyways. It's going to get them more. So yeah, having to think about producing content in that way is really, unsettling for me because, and I'm grappling with that because it's like, okay, maybe it's just I'm used to horizontal and that's the only reason I want to keep doing it that way is because that's the way it's always been. And I'm not for that. I'm not for just doing something just for the sake of that's how it's always been. But I think there is an aspect of like, the only reason vertical exists is because of the way our hands physically are, because that's the way the phone was designed, and they made the videos to fit the way the phone was designed, and they made the phone designed to fit our hand. So like it's because vertical was just exactly like you would think, right? But just because people are too lazy to turn it, like that's why vertical video took off, is because they wanted just something quick, and nobody ever thought it could work, but it is now, and people are scrolling this way instead of this way. So like what are your guys' thoughts on how to knowing that kind of thing going into the future, like, do you see the kind of content you're producing as being something feasible, like going forward into generation? Because fewer people are watching TV now too, as it turns out. So like, what are your guys' thoughts on like the future of the industry when it comes to video and the types of content you're producing?
Yeah, like that's a big reason why I started doing, again, going back to YouTube and putting short excerpts on YouTube, but then also taking those shorts and converting them into a vertical format so that it can be watched on Instagram. I am thinking about its relevance to younger people. Fortunately, PBS has done a pretty good job setting up a pretty robust streaming infrastructure. So theoretically, we could get audiences to go to PBS more. I think people just aren't used to it yet.
Yeah.
But as an example, like NPR actually like a decade or more ago recognized this trend and was like, oh yeah, okay, streaming is just straight up more convenient than listening to the radio.
Oh, that's
so
good.
everybody's going to be listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And so many years ago, I mean, it might even be like 20 years ago now that they really got on board the podcast
I mean,
thing.
Radio
And,
Lab is super
right.
old. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like those were originally radio programs, and they're still aired on the radio, but they designed them as podcasts now. And I think at this point, most people listen to NPR content as a podcast on a podcasting platform versus
Interesting.
actually tuning their radio to like 89.5 or whatever it is. And
I'd be curious to see the stats on that because, yeah, that could very well be the case. Like of a certain age and younger, they're probably, listening to them as podcasts. And I mean, I can say that's for sure the case for me. I have, those 6 or 7 shows, whatever the average is for the person podcast in rotation that I listen to. And I'm like, how are more people not doing this? You can listen to whatever you want, whenever you want. You can cycle through it. It's long form while you're driving. You don't you're not doing anything anyways. You get to hear about, stay up to date on things. I think it's a beautiful, now that this technology is becoming so accessible, it's not just the radio, stations that have it anymore. It's, like this kind of thing is going to be so enriching. And granted, it's just like words. The more there are, the less valuable they can be. But I think like what you guys are doing, if not a podcast, I'm sure there's like a way to format this exact type of show that you're doing. Have you thought about doing it as like a radio thing or just an audio presentation? Is there a way to do
yeah,
it?
funny enough, this month on February 3rd, we're going to air a story on Jefferson Public Radio because there's a collaboration between SOPBS and JPR on certain content. And so Us As We Are found itself as kind of the guinea pig for testing, like, can we convert one of our TV segments into an audio segment, put that on JPR, expand the audience, hopefully of both organizations in the end.
Right.
So I've been working on an audio version of the story we shot in Grants Pass of their MLK celebration.
Oh, wow.
And that's been interesting. I've been working with their news director, Eric Newman, on like how to optimize stuff for radio. And I'm finding it to be a bit of a learning curve because it's very different. I'm used to like the show, don't tell. You have visuals for all of the stuff. You don't need to explain everything. I've gotten very comfortable in that mode. And now it's like going the opposite direction because if there's something visual that happened and it's only visual, you have to explain it. Like you have to write voiceover to be like, imagine a high steepled church and you walk through the wood, the carved double doors and you see all of these amazing wooden pillars and all kinds of
Which, dude, Radio Lab,
Yeah.
they nailed that to a science.
Yeah,
Like,
they've got it down.
They're just, Radio Lab's awesome. If you haven't listened, go listen to it. So do you guys work from home? Like, do you have do you feel like it's your own place that you live and share together as a collaborative like workspace as well?
Yeah, to a degree. We have a studio there.
Oh, nice.
Where it's, we keep all of our gear, kind of like you've got a gear room. That's kind of our gear
A
room.
little bit smaller than this.
Yeah.
Not including that storage area.
Yeah. And then, it's like a square room. I have a desk in there for editing.
Nice.
So I do a pretty substantial amount of editing from home.
Nice.
But like right now, like almost all of Us As We Are is handled at the station where I've got an office as well.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you guys kind of do outside of Us As We Are, outside of video?
Well, we've got a really big documentary project that's been going on in the background for a while. We shot it last May. It's called Four Corners of Oregon, and without spoiling too much, it's a road trip documentary similar to the stuff we were making.
I remember seeing those teasers, seeing the trips of you guys in the van, on the story and stuff.
So the idea is that if you think of Oregon like a rectangle, we wanted to stand on each point of that rectangle and see what was there, and along the way document all of the different landmarks and people and interesting things you can run into while basically doing a circumnavigation of Oregon.
That's so freaking incredible.
Best 2 weeks of my life.
Oh, it was
Straight up.
incredible. road
Hands
trip.
down, best 2 weeks of my entire life.
That is, and so you're editing it?
Yeah, slowly. It's a huge
I
pile
can,
of
how
footage.
many terabytes? At least
Two?
one.
I
Wasn't
think 2 entire terabytes of footage because it's all 4K.
I knew not to even ask gigabytes. I'm like, no, this is at least
Just how many hard drives?
Yeah. It's basically 1 entire hard drive
Yeah.
just for storing the footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel you on that. I have a 12 terabyte right here, just like
Nice.
a network storage just for accumulating all the things because I'm just the worst about deleting anything. I don't know if the worst. I've heard both sides of the argument. Like you should delete your footage. You should always keep it because you never know type thing.
I
And
keep everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never
Okay, good.
deleted raw footage.
Same.
So I think someday when I
maybe
get
like in a
old,
rare
It pays off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do like, Keegan Van Hook us as we are, the early years,
Dude,
unsealed
like,
secret
exactly,
files,
like,
the
I'm
raw
just like,
footage stuff.
Unlike hoarding, in a physical space that actually has limitations. There's almost no such thing as hoarding. Like you can be disorganized for sure, but like you can always get new hard drives. Like you can always get more footage or more storage for your footage. Like, so that's kind of how I've thought of it is like, yeah, I could save myself some money and like,
Is it that block the
it's
box?
it's the first box right here. Yeah.
Okay.
It's networked attached. So I can access it kind of remotely too. But if I can also have just other computers here, like network into it and we can share files off of it. Did a little bit of research and it just sounded like the best thing. Originally, like what I planned on doing, kind of like the same theme I've been talking about is like I wanted to do this like more collaboratively. I tried to reach out to a couple friends of mine, sort of gently, but also like, do you want to do this video production company with me? Like we can kind of figure it out. Like I don't really know what to do. You don't really know what to do, but like I have some experience and like we went to film school and like I worked for Harry and David in video and like I've done these odd jobs. I kind of want to do something, but I never really had anybody sort of fully bite down on it. But I wanted to like kind of optimize this space for that in case I ever did, which I still, plan on trying to get there. Part of like what I'm talking to this business coach, I guess you'll call him, about is like my goals and aspirations as far as what I want to do in video. And that is one of them still. Like I want to build a team at some point eventually type of thing. Cause that's just how I work better. And that's the type of career I'd want. Like as much as being a lone wolf is kind of cool, cause obviously you have a lot more freedom and you can move a lot faster. It's just like a lot of the time you can move faster. It's just less ideas to bounce off of. And, just to quickly bring it back to the podcast and the conversation, because I want to keep as much of that conversation we just had in there as possible. Part of the reason I appreciate you guys coming out to do this recording is because, just knowing I don't actually have this podcast out anywhere yet. I'll put that disclaimer out there. I don't actually have a podcast really. This is literally just me recording content in the hopes that enough people hold me accountable that I put it out there. So please hold me accountable and follow up with it because I'm really kind of just exploring like what I want to do with it. I know, like I was telling you guys, I want to do stuff like this, have conversations with people, get to know people I think are doing really interesting, cool stuff and talk about some of these things in society. But the other aspect that I want to include in it is just like, I just want to know how other people in the video industry specifically, because that's what I know about and I'm trying to figure out, are doing it because I don't know. And I don't know. I'd love to know about things I'm doing right or wrong or differently or the same. And so like, as much as we might talk in one part of the conversation about something really deep and profound as like language and meaning and people's emotions, I might jump to like, yeah, but how's the editing? Like what kind of cuts did you use there? And like, cause I really do want to talk about, because I think, not only am I just interested in video stuff, but I think there's a lot that can be said about what the role of video production is on all of those other things, like on culture and society and stuff. And you think about something like George Floyd, for example, and like how little of a deal would that have been if somebody wouldn't have been there to record it? Like the power of technology is something I think about a lot. But specifically the technology of video cameras and how accessible they've become is like, we're like, living in an age, again, to make this all about me. I know I've been ranting for like 5 minutes now on my own show, but it's fine. If I was going to write like a paper, like just a short essay on something, it would be called The Future of History, because it's interesting for me to think about how, I promise I'll tie this into what you guys do, but just stick with me here. But we're existing in a time right now where like for the first time, people aren't going to wonder, oh, I wonder what it was like in the 20s, because we'll have video of what it's like now. Like people in 3000, I imagine, won't be like, I wonder what it was like in 2023. It's like, well, watch the videos and you'll have a pretty good idea. Like, and you can watch hundreds of millions of videos and have a really well-rounded idea. There'll probably even be an algorithm that can sort through all of those videos and present a more cohesive video that's like fabricated, if you will, but it still gives you like a really well-rounded account based on all of this other video content that exists of a visual representation of how something looked, sounded, all that stuff in this time.
A great modern day example of that is the January 6 hearings that they had. And
how they made that like minute by minute walk.
The way that they parceled all of that together, all the texts and the emails and the phone calls between who, and then all the video that was captured, security cameras, all the news media, all the just Instagram and Snapchat stuff that was recorded, just pieced it all together.
Interesting. I haven't actually seen it, but
so that'll be cool to see things like that on the more that it becomes normalized, that kind of storytelling of a specific event, how it, like nothing will be hidden.
Exactly. Yeah, or very few things, fewer and fewer things for sure. And yeah, to connect it back, it's like I see people in this industry of video production being like, if not gatekeepers of the future, but just like part of the window to it in a sense. Like we have a responsibility, if not a responsibility, then just like the power, I guess I'll say. And of course, we all know the Spider-Man quote, with great one comes the other, but like, we have the cameras, we're documenting the world, we're sharing it, we're like putting it out there. And granted, everybody's making videos about everything, but like people who are actually documenting the real world for that type of looking back at history, like that's really what the power is. Like, you know, sure, watching those kind of like humorous videos on cat videos on YouTube will give you kind of an idea of what entertained us. But the kind of videos that showcase the world and people as they are really going to be what history looks for to do that sort of sifting process and understanding like where we are. So
I think something that I've noticed when watching other people try to cover history is that it can be surprisingly difficult to get information about normal people. Like there's this YouTube channel I was watching where this guy cooks recipes, like food from history, based
Tasting
on
History?
Yeah, it's called Tasting History with Max Miller. A great show. And it's difficult, he says, for him to find recipes for like poor people food in particular, because almost all of the cookbooks that have come down to us through history are for rich people, because rich people were the only people who had cookbooks back then, right? Even though 95% of the world was eating poor people food, there's like almost no recipe out there for like you know, hardtack or whatever
from
it was
that
they were eating.
age, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowadays, those things do get revived through like comfort food and like Southern food. Like that type of food can make it up to the commoners now or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a really interesting thing how information in the past was like only could be transcended by those in power. But now anybody can transmit information, like genuine information, into the future at any time.
Even if it seems mundane is
Yeah.
the important thing. Like, you know.
Yeah. You guys watch Vsauce?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, finish your thought about mundane, but I have a follow-up question about Vsauce.
Sure. Yeah. Just that, like, sometimes it might feel like something is way too ordinary to be worth documenting, but it might not be ordinary at all. A long time from now, there are tons of things people did in the Roman Empire that were just boring, everyday, normal
But
things.
how cool would that be to see that? Like, and yeah, I mentioned Vsauce because he has some video he did recently. He's like, this video from like the 1980s on YouTube has like 10 billion views or so, 10 million. I shouldn't conflate those two terms because, yeah, as a logical person, I know it's dangerous to do that because there's orders of magnitude different. But it has a ton of views. Probably only a couple million, but still, of just people in a convenience store from the 80s, like just shopping. And it's just a genuine, and he's like, why is this so popular? And he kind of points it that way, as like, people just love looking back at mundane shit if it's old enough. Like nobody wants to watch it if it was from yesterday's news. It's like, oh, that's old news. It's like, yeah, but watching people just walk down the street and from 1910, like a good video of that would be so insane to watch, to see how people moved, like how they talked to one another, how they interacted. Like, and yeah, even obviously further back, the Roman Colosseum, like, and that's why I think the future of history would be an interesting, for one, just play on words, you know, go me. But like, it's just, like history is never going to be the same as from today. Like we're in a
Yeah.
time where history will never be the same.
I think about a thought I have a lot is that like the memory of our species is becoming more clear as time goes on, similar to how like a
Yeah.
child when they're born is collecting almost no memory at all, but then steadily you start to, you know, grab more memories, and then eventually you're able to have a very clear biographical memory of like your whole life. And our species is kind of going through something similar where for all this time we had no
Like
photography, and
adolescent, yeah,
I mean,
or-
for a while we had no writing, we had no way of recording history
Oh,
at all.
that's true too.
And then you get like hieroglyphics and cave carvings and things like that. And then you start to have writing and the ability to put things down on scrolls. And then you can paint things and recreate scenes that happened in real life, or create pictures of people who really existed by painting them. And then boom, you have photography. And then that's when like the memory of our species really began.
Yeah.
Is that like now we're actually imprinting the real life images of things that happened and recording them. And then that technology is getting better and better and better. And now we're in this really interesting place where using like modern, you know, computer graphics technology and artificial intelligence, we're able to take some of those old photos as well as old film videos and actually upgrade them to 4K, 60 frame per second quality, add sound effects. Like I'm thinking of,
Colorize them.
colorize. I'm thinking of that documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old, where Peter Jackson like restored all the World War I footage and,
Oh, wow.
you know, put people's voices in and made it feel very immersive.
Wow.
So I think about like nowadays we're recording things in 4K and publishing it in 1080 and doing all of this HD video. And I wonder if the technology in the future will enable people to restore our footage into like full
Immersive.
18K immersive VR,
3D
smell-o-vision,
Yeah.
where it's like using like I have in my imagination, I wonder if people will like take the protest we were at yesterday and all the footage that we published from that and go like, all right, let's run all of this footage through an AI algorithm, and that AI will recreate the space and populate it with like NPC characters that are replicants of people from the video, kind of like, you know, we've got deep fakes now where they're
Yeah.
able to composite a bunch of faces together to create a brand new person who's
And
never
the
existed.
better the data set, the better quality it can
Right.
produce.
So I think that is where things are going, where you'll actually like videos and stuff from now or soon at least will not only just be videos, they'll actually be like memories. Like
Yeah.
you'll be able to remember those moments via technology.
because there's so many things that tie into memory other than just sight and sound too. It's like you mentioned, like spatial, like depth and stuff. God, who was I just hearing this conversation about? It was on a podcast because he mentioned that maybe it was a Joe Rogan episode. Guy talking about memory. He's like, "How do you memorize so much shit?" It must have been Joe Rogan because he asked a dumb question like that. He's like, "How do you just remember shit?" He's like, well, it turns out the human brain is more wired to remember things spatially. And what he said was like over Zoom calls, people have a hard time remembering the meetings because there's not actually depth like this. But when you can like spatially remember something in your mind, it locks it in more. So like this conversation is more memorable to all of us right now because space is involved compared to doing it over Zoom where we wouldn't remember it because there's no space involved, is how he mentioned it. So yeah, adding that element to an algorithm where, yeah, you could like walk through and interact with a crowd that day because it pulled info from all of these cell phones, all of these like data sets basically, and recreated an environment. And then, yeah, the smells, we all know like there's the smell that'll take you back to something because your olfactory nerve is like directly linked to your hippocampus or whatever it is. Like, yeah, I think there's limitless potential in like how crazy realistic memories could, you know, be relived. And that's not even considering the fact that like human beings, the fleshy sacks that we are, probably won't even be fleshy sacks in the future. We'll be like half digital already, you know, able to live a lot longer because we'll have artificial parts and brains that can connect digitally to things and interact with things digitally. So like the idea of memory is even tough for me to think about long term because our memories might be able to actually be backed up in some sense somewhere like a freaking 12 terabyte hard drive, you know, like, so yeah. So you guys, with your doing what you're doing, no pressure, you know, now, but the future relies on you completely to recreate this perfectly well. But all the more reason to do exactly what you're doing, which is like just presenting it, you know, like even if not for the future's sake, just for like the sake of people understanding where we're at right now and Yeah, us as we are, you know.
And so many people are like, this valley's boring. There's nothing
Dude,
happening
yeah.
here. And it's
You
like,
go to the city.
No, you need to just look around, or like
Yeah.
get like a group of people together for like a hobby. And it's like, there are things happening all the time here.
Yeah.
It obviously slows down in the winter, but
Yeah. But I mean, and that's another beauty of what you guys are doing. You're not just capturing events, you're also capturing stories. Like, you know, not just live events, but actual, the Alvord Desert was one. I know that's like an older project, doesn't necessarily highlight people, but a place for sure. And so is that still part of the plan for the future? Like, you guys still want to capture places and tell the stories
Definitely.
of
That's one of my
places? Okay.
favorite things we've done
Topics.
outside of Us As We Are. That documentary is incredible, I think.
Yeah. And so like so are those types of like stories going to be a part of Us As We Are, or would you do those stories independently of that series then if it's not about people? Like,
We've
does it have
kinda
to have
had-
people in it?
We've kind of had two strains of documentary making projects, I would say.
Yeah.
We've had our road trip documentaries, which is about places, and then our most recent one does also involve people. And then we've got the Us As We Are stuff, which is very much about people and events and sort of this place. I think in the long term, we're going to be making stuff that's like a hybrid of those two things, where it is like an on the road kind of show. It's
Yeah.
built around like the idea of going out and having an adventure somewhere, going to a new place. But I want it to incorporate people more and more.
Yeah.
I think like that's something that is a little bit missing from some of my older stuff, is that like in the Alvord Desert, there's no people. It's just Lewis and I
Right.
wandering around.
Which
in the
kind of
desert.
like
Is a
almost
little
fits the
accurate
theme,
for
but
the
yeah.
Alvord Desert.
yeah, it worked out okay. But if you really
But it
like
would've been
wanted
cool
to,
to see, like,
there's
one-
actually characters out there.
Yeah,
we
like the
could have
person who
talked to.
works at the hot spring.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
this hot spring, and the caretaker is pretty much just out there by themselves for
Yeah.
a lot of the time. I actually almost took that job right out
Yeah.
of college.
Really?
They couldn't find anyone who could pass a drug test because like the hot
Well,
springing
because-
community is very
Yeah.
popular with like people who do a lot of like LSD and stuff.
Of course.
Surprised they would even try.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like you can probably find some.
We don't want them
like-
to smoke weed while hanging out with hippies at the hot spring all the time. It's like, okay, well,
You just want them to be able to wait long enough to pass the test and then go take the job. Yeah.
Right.
That's yeah, but you're right. Like that
You
one
should've done
little interaction could have been cool. I think about that too, but even not as far out as the Alvord frickin' desert, but like even I remember as a kid going to like Union Creek, like on the way to Bend, driving through that little town. I'm like, where do you live? Like as a kid,
Yeah.
like where do you go? Like how do you exist?
Oh, I
you
think that all the time in Eastern Oregon. What do
Oregon,
kids do out here?
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine growing up out there.
But
there's
then
still one-room schoolhouses. People like
Yep.
people think
Wow.
that's like a Little House on the Prairie era, like Wild West thing. That back in the day you'd learn in a one-room schoolhouse with a single teacher for all the grades. And it's like no, that's still like currently in the state of Oregon a situation that like hundreds of kids are in.
they're like Oregon. You mean Portland? It's like no,
No,
outer
no,
Portland.
we're talking like the deep Wild West.
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
I want to talk about homelessness and you guys' experience with that, because that is something that it's not necessarily like I'm not like closely affected by homelessness. Like sure, I've had friends here and there and I've known people here and there and I've gathered some stories, but like to me it's just if I could wave a magic wand and fix one problem with the world, obviously there's millions to choose from and there's a whole list of why certain things could take precedence over others, but for me, that one is there's just something about like not like trying to be outside of the norm of society and just like completely taking the brunt of the elements for it. Like there's just something so deeply tragic about like not having that level of existence of like a place to live or a feeling of acceptance. Cause it'd be one thing if you just lived off your grid and you have to, fend for yourself and people are like, good for you, man, you're trying. But like you get shit on as a homeless person too, by culture and society. So that's just something that, again, like if I could wave the magic wand and solve one thing, that might be the thing to me for that reason. And like in college, I did like kind of a thing where I tried to go around and interview some of these organizations, Hearts with a Mission and Rogue Retreat and a few of those, just to get a sense of what the scope of the problem was, knowing nothing about it and just wanting to learn. And so I'm curious. I'll be curious for sure what your guys' actual thoughts are on the issue. But first of all, the episodes, just walk me through like some of the stories you guys have done as it pertains to homelessness. The Clean Sweep I know is one. And
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one we did because that was like a multi-day shoot and we were pretty much embedded in the situation on that one. We were there for, I think it was like 2 days, and it was another one of those times we didn't sleep for a while.
And I think that was also, we had sort of planned that, like, we do sort of arcs sometimes. And I think that was sort of planned to be like, this is going to be kind of the apex of our
Yeah.
coverage of homelessness, at least for the time being.
Yeah, we did. This was all a while ago now, so it's hard to remember all of the shoots. But we had been following a movement that had emerged in Ashland of homeless people who were protesting the police's what would you like policy?
Heavy-handed.
Yeah, the heavy-handed policy of like you have to move from this spot, like you can't camp in certain places.
Yeah.
And there's also just a cycle that happens with people who are homeless where there aren't a lot of places to go and put a tent down and do that. And so they'll go to a spot and then they'll get a notice from the police, and then 2 days later the police will move them. So they'll go to another spot, cycle repeats.
Yeah.
And so we had been following that for a while, listening to various homeless people discuss that issue. And then the apex of it, like Lewis said, was documenting this big police sweep that happened on the Bear Creek Greenway.
Yeah. So quickly define that. What is the clean sweep?
Yeah, so a sweep is where the police like move in, kind of enforce and clear out a large number of homeless people from a specific area. So in this case, it was this guy named T-Bone who had set up this large camp. And there were other homeless people who were kind of in the orbit of his very large camp. And it was like almost this like established structure that he had
It was
built
really
up.
impressive. Like
It was-
log
yeah.
walls, separated
Wow.
rooms with doors.
Wow.
It even had a latrine.
Yeah.
It was really impressive.
There was like
Wow.
a lot of construction that had gone into it. And so the
Did
police...
you guys actually go in it? Like,
yeah, we wanted
All
to.
around it,
We
yeah.
got like a tour of his like house.
dude
basically.
had a drum set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
It
his
was-
in his bedroom.
Okay, people go watch this. This is
Yeah.
for sure. Like that stuff. Again, it's just impressive to see. You know, people
Yeah.
who can.
And he had been there for 9 or 10 months at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, he had
Hmm,
managed to
interesting.
keep that spot for quite a while.
He had a good relationship with the housed folks that were
Mm-hmm.
less
Yeah,
than
right
100
next door,
yards
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
him.
so he was creating what you might call a semi-sustainable existence on the Greenway.
Wow.
And so then eventually, of course, the police caught wind of it. They served him a notice, like, you got to get this stuff out of here and move on. This is public property. You're not allowed to camp here. And
Was it pretty visible from the greenway, from the path itself?
not really, actually. Like, I think
You
there
could,
was
you could
some...
make it out, but it
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what happened is it had just grown to a size where it was starting to become visible, and so that's why the police discovered it and why they wanted it removed. So they served a notice. I don't remember what date it was.
He flew too close to the sun.
A little bit.
We need to start
like
a charity
Icarus.
to get like military camouflage netting for homeless people.
Oh, I mean, dude, it's just like that's. I mean,
be
that's
interesting.
incredible. He almost did have it made completely. Like he found the one little part of land that you could actually live, that's close to everything, that
Yep.
but nobody could see you. That's the goal, you
That's
know,
the
like
dream. And it-
which is semi-attainable in that area of the Greenway. For those who don't know and haven't ventured, it's just like a little bit like our little jungle, like right along the river.
Yeah.
And there's certain, paths in and out of it. But yeah, a lot of it is visible just from the road, if not the Greenway itself, but even the road sometimes. So like, it's just a thing of perception, really, is the homelessness, the crux of the homelessness issue. It's just perception. Like people just don't like to see it, that's a whole other discussion. It's like whether just because you don't like the look of something, it shouldn't exist. But like, I don't know. But sorry, to continue with the story of T-Bone. So he had built this structure.
Yeah,
But
so-
and there were also other people who found his spot and were, okay.
Yeah, there was and that was maybe another reason why it got noticed by the police and why the sweep was going to happen is that, this is just how things go a lot of the time. It reaches a certain capacity and just becomes impossible to hide.
Yeah.
So it had reached that capacity. The police served a notice and they, lo and behold, they moved into the area and they told all of the people in there, like, here are your options. You can go to Rogue Retreat. You can go to the urban campground. You can go to these things. Granted, a lot of those places are not acceptable to those homeless people. There's all kinds of things that get said. There's a capacity issue in terms of the things that get said. There's a lot of claimed like religious indoctrination from certain groups or high barriers, like you can't drink, you
Right.
can't be on drugs, etc. It's not a housing first type situation.
It sort of bears noting that there's I think it was a Supreme Court case. It's like someone versus
Ninth
Boise.
Circuit Court, but yes.
Yeah. And basically the result of that case was that the police or whoever can't sweep someone from their homeless camp unless there is an available spot in a shelter.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
so, suppose there's like 3 spots at the urban campground and 2 spots at the Presbyterian church shelter. That means that the police can serve notices to 5 homeless people.
Okay.
But like Keegan was saying, the problem is that a lot of those shelters just aren't acceptable to the homeless people.
Because they have different barriers of entry.
Mhm.
Okay.
You can't have dogs at one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these people have like service animals and things,
Yeah.
or companions at the least.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so it was this whole situation of they didn't want to go, but the police were going to make them go. So it came down to like, well, if you don't leave the area that we are taping off, like you'll be under arrest. So grab your stuff and get out of here. You have like, so, a little bit of time.
72 hours or whatever.
Yeah, and so when they didn't do that, they showed up. They taped off the area with, caution tape, and they like took a giant backhoe in there and started just like scooping stuff up, like scoop up the tents and just dumping things into this big dumpster.
Yeah.
And it all got mixed together, and there was like dripping liquids, and yeah, it was like
But there
that
were,
really visibly nasty contents like being dropped into this
It was
thing.
rough.
It was like anybody's stuff that was in those scoops was like totally gone.
Yeah.
But there were like advocates and stuff there. That was
Right.
the
So
whole
right.
that was also what made it interesting, is that this time there was a bunch of advocates and there were protesters against the sweep, and it kind of turned into this
People
whole
with cameras.
thing. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, like people with cameras, and ultimately it actually saved T-Bone's camp itself for another day, I believe. But then it was like, when it felt like the story was over and all of us media people went away and went off to different stories, then they came back and they did another sweep and they took down all of T-Bone's stuff after that once the cameras weren't rolling.
Gotcha.
But we did document them tearing apart quite a few homeless camps and
so
moving
how-
homeless people out.
And so how did the word get out about that? I noticed for the listeners, you guys interviewed a guy, name escapes me at the moment, but he's a lawyer.
Yeah,
Rosas,
Justin
Justin
Rosas.
Rosas, yeah. My wife actually knows him. She works at the DA's office. She's like, oh yeah, we talk to him all the time.
Interesting.
So we were watching that, and she's like, yeah, he comes in all the time, and he's a good lawyer and everything. I was like, oh, interesting. But because he looks like such a casual dude in the
Yeah.
one angle you had of him with his
Hipster
hat,
lawyer,
and
yeah.
his unbuttoned shirt, I'm like, dude, this guy's a bro. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I loved how he had his like intern and
Yeah.
associates there dressed like really
Exactly.
fancy. And then
I
he's
was
got
like,
his,
are these
ball
people?
cap
I
and stuff.
guarantee they're his assistants. Like he's having them there, but he's showing them what's up with the.
Right.
But he's also super articulate. It seemed like, and again, something I would be more hesitant to take his word for anything he was saying if it was cut up. Almost, it's like
Yeah.
the fact that I'm hearing him in the way you guys are presenting him. It's like I can see truly his thought process without seeing it on like the news, Channel 5 or something, where it's just like, yeah, we love to come out here, we love to do what we can, and these people deserve better. And then it cuts to the story, and it's like that guy could just be a total fucking snake too, you know.
Yeah.
But like the way you guys are presenting him is so rich, and so sorry to tie it back. How did the word get out about this one specifically? Was he pretty crucial to that? Like,
Yeah, it was something we
does
had
he have a lot of
found-
clients from that?
I think actually we had found out about the whole situation from a guy named Joseph Gibson, who's a homeless individual who lives around here.
Okay.
And he was one of the people who was taking part in like the advocacy side of this. He's a unhoused individual. He would not describe himself as homeless because he chooses the lifestyle. He's been kind of a traveling, like vagabond kind of a guy basically his whole life by what he says. So he sees himself as an advocate for people who are kind of in the same physical situation as him, but who didn't choose it and are very uncomfortable in that situation.
Wow.
So he was doing a bunch of stuff kind of as a demonstrator of like, this is what homelessness looks like, trying to advocate for others who want out. And I believe he was
Wow.
the big source of info on learning about like, okay, this is what's going to happen. And
Gotcha.
so then we went out to the campground and asked if we could go in, talk to the guy talk to T-Bone, who was the person with the camp, and
Yeah.
that's how we got in there. It's fuzzy now. This was all like over 2 years ago, so it's starting to get
You've got
hard to
the
actually
footage.
remember what happened myself. And to be clear, I'm not necessarily very articulate talking about the homeless issue or any issue. Like, I'm really a listener. I've been exposed to a lot of this
Sure.
stuff. I can't tell you a single solution to homelessness
Yeah.
or really give you like an
Well-
opinion about like what's going on that causes it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
even those things you've already highlighted about these laws are in place. This is why they're allowed to kick them out, but this is why that's still messed up because there's no place for them to go. Like even the fact that you know that level of nuance to the situation is, I think, still more than a good percentage of other people who are like either super against it or super like, why can't we just help them out? It's like there's so many sides to this whole thing, kind of thing too. But yeah, at the end of the day, it really does have to come from a place of empathy, and it's like there really aren't enough resources. It sounds like either. Did you guys get to talk to the police at all?
I tried.
Tried.
Yeah.
Are they on a strict no media thing?
Pretty
right now?
much.
Pretty
On-duty
much.
police officers basically will never talk to the media. There's
Okay.
only rare exceptions to that where they have like a person available for the media, which
Mm.
at a previous situation at Hawthorne Park, right after the Almeida fire, a bunch of homeless people went to the Hawthorne Park
Yeah.
because they'd been sort of scattered from the Greenway by the burning fire.
Yeah.
And they were now having to camp in Hawthorne Park. That persisted for a couple of days before the police decided to crack down on it. And so they served everybody in the park a notice. That turned into a giant like media fiasco, basically, where
course.
everybody wanted to cover it. So we were among the many different news stations who went out there. And so in that situation, they had a specific police officer who was like a media correspondent, or not a correspondent, like trained to talk to the
Liaison.
media, basically.
Sure,
yeah,
a
thank you.
liaison, yeah.
And so we got to talk to him.
PR person.
Basically. And, you know, he was able to express like the police's side of it, of just like, well, we don't want to arrest anybody, but they can't be here. And so we need them to leave. And if they don't leave, then yes, we're going to arrest them. And
Yeah.
he was able to, he was a friendly guy. You could tell he was like their pick for talking to the media because he was definitely a very nice dude. But
Yeah.
it was,
That's the best you're
normally
gonna get.
you don't get to talk to
Well,
the police.
JPR's April Ehrlich ended up getting arrested
Yeah,
by that.
the very next day in the same place, JPR journalist April Ehrlich was arrested there because the police were then performing their sweep. And since that was a very public area and there was like a media fiasco going on, they created like a media box. Like, all right, we want all the reporters to like be over here. And
She refused.
she was like, no, I want to be over here. And so they arrested her for that and like pressed
Basically
charges.
trespassing, I think.
I can't remember exactly what they
Wow.
charged her with.
I think it was trespassing
I
because
think
the
it was.
park was closed.
Gotcha.
Would you guys have done that if you were in a situation, you think?
It's hard to say because then at the other sweep, it was the same situation. Well, that was interesting. They didn't set up like a press area, and maybe this was after that incident had happened. So maybe the police had like learned a lesson, like maybe we shouldn't set up a press area, but instead create a press exclusion area because that was more what happened. They like taped off the area that they were doing the sweep. And they didn't want anybody of any background, didn't matter if you were a journalist or not, to go into that area. But it was the situation where like you could just stand on the side and see clearly what they were
they're
doing.
doing,
So
yeah.
in that case, there wasn't like a need to break the laws that the police were putting down or the rules. You just didn't have to, so we didn't.
Yeah.
And generally, I mean, I'm not trying to get arrested. I don't want to make a martyr of myself that
Yeah,
way
right.
necessarily. I might lose the SD cards and not even have the footage after that. So it's like, it's something I'm looking to avoid. I've generally followed the instructions of the police. In that situation, if they were trying to box me into an area, though, I don't know. It would be very circumstantial.
It depends on how good the view was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can't get a shot from that box, I'm gonna
probably
not be in
going to
that
leave the box.
Do it
Because
for
it's
the
just like,
shot.
well, this is unacceptable. You are impinging my press freedom.
Yes.
I'm confident that if you arrest me, you're going to have to let me go.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I will wrap. I will take the SD cards out, wrap them in a condom, and swallow them.
If I have
You
to.
don't carry. Do you carry condoms?
I don't carry condoms.
You should start if you want
I
to do
should
that
start.
plan.
For doing that.
I should start.
There's other things you could probably swallow them in that aren't condoms that are.
Well, yeah, but see, my thought is like condoms are lubed up; it'll go down easier.
That's true too, yeah. And it won't dissolve in your stomach acid either. Yeah. I'm saving this SD card. Yeah, you do it for the footage. Man, that's what they need to invent. Some camera company SD cards you can swallow in case of
Yeah.
in case of that.
Yeah.
Do you guys have oh man, what is it called? Contingency plans for things for these events you go out on? These
Sometimes when
things-
it's
Yeah.
like
Is there ever like a discussion ahead of time, like, hey guys, shit goes south, you know where the lighthouse is, or you know where the
Well,
high
yeah.
ground is? We'll just walk over
like
there.
just yesterday, it was like if there are gunshots or a rogue vehicle, God forbid,
Mhm.
go to the car, meet back at the car, and then we'll
Figure it out.
figure it out from there, and then assess and how dangerous is it, or the police here. I mean, but the police were super heavy
Yeah.
in Grants Pass, so nothing. Luckily,
But is it weird, like, having to do that now? Like,
Yeah.
as for your
We
job?
don't have to do it very often.
It's
We
less
don't
now. Yeah,
often discuss like specific contingency plans. Like, all right, if we're on B Street and there's gunshots, we'll go this direction, go back to the car, and then
Yeah.
do blah blah blah. We just have like general like, all right, guys, like we just talk about it a little bit, like aware of the fact that there's a slight possibility of something
Right.
like that happening, like at a big counter protest situation. It's
Yeah.
like, sure, you see it nationally all the time that like
Yeah.
those situations go south, a fight breaks out, somebody shoots somebody else, and it's like, yeah, you want to get away from that and just have discussed that it's a possibility, just so that it's on the mind, kind of a plan your fall situation.
Right.
But it's pretty unlikely. It's not something I'm like actively always worried about. Like, we have people that we know from the field. Well, the Pepper Shakers, like they just recently got bulletproof vests because they're actually like in the fray. They're taking a side and they have been threatened before. They've dealt with stuff. So they're like very worried and
Yeah.
fully like acting on a contingency plan of like, all right, if I get shot, I'm wearing a bulletproof vest.
Right.
That kind of thing. That's not something we do or worry that much about.
Yeah. Typically, as media, one
yeah.
doesn't as much, I suppose. But
And then with like, I do worry sometimes about getting arrested. And in situations in the past where I felt like getting arrested was a real possibility, like of course, right after April Ehrlich was arrested at the Hawthorne Park thing, when we went to the sweep that we documented, we like wrote phone numbers for people on our arms and we're like all ready for like, okay, if they like really just throw the book at us and try to keep
Wow.
us in jail for a long time, don't let us like access our cell phones, stuff like that. It's like, I don't have everybody's phone number memorized these
Yeah.
days. So it's like, I wrote down like a ton of different phone numbers for everybody from my parents to like Mayor Julie Akins,
Oh my
like
gosh.
to just,
Wow.
just people who I figured would be good to be able to call and just be like, so I was arrested for BS reasons.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need some representation.
yeah, right.
So
Wow.
I have thought about that and created certain like fallbacks,
All
but
the
not
more
really
reason-
specific contingencies.
Yeah. No, that's similar for you guys. You think?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of the same conversation.
Yeah, and you can only prepare so much.
Yeah.
Like I was at some of those protests in Portland in 2020, and there
Oh,
was a
that's-
lot of that
you've,
going
You've
on.
seen that's
Yeah.
protest
He's
capital
been
of the world.
flashbanged.
Yeah.
Flash
really?
banged and tear gassed and
Really?
everything except rubber bullets, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
This man is Antifa.
Yeah.
I am
case you're
actually
wondering.
the communist BLM Antifa anarchist
Have you
socialist.
found yourself on any of those like platforms? Like spotted yourself in the background of a crowd at a rally? You're like, oh, that's me.
Oh,
I guess I am that.
no. I haven't really tried that though, so
No.
who knows?
But that's crazy. Yeah, we could have a whole longer conversation
yeah.
about even that. Just the experience of the protest now.
yeah,
Um,
but there's a lot of that with like the big protests. A lot of people share useful advice. Some people in kind of an annoying way where it's like, if you don't do this, you're protesting wrong and you're endangering everyone. But
yeah.
I think you do have to prepare a certain amount, but you also have to just internalize the fact that you are going to an event that's inherently unpredictable.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to prepare 100%.
For everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something else you had mentioned is just when you were talking about that first event at Hawthorne where all of the people gathered after the fire, right after Almeida, and all the media was there and everything. It just got me thinking about a bunch of people from different media outlets at the same event, and something I'm not necessarily used to seeing necessarily, like in the type of video stuff that I'm doing. It's like not media, but I'm just curious if you guys have a sense of like what other media's perception of you is when you're at an event like this, or if that's even like a thing that goes on. Like what happens when there's a bunch of media together? Like, are they trying to get not in each other's shot? Do they talk to each other from different stations? Like, is there ever like a,
I think they avoid getting us in their shot, but I like to put them in our shots.
Okay, gotcha.
Because
You're
it's
qu-
like
you're
they're
not
part
quite
of the
at that.
scene.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in a way part of the scene.
Yeah.
You can't go to a thing and be separate from it in a way. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely been situations where our presence has like altered what's going on because it's like, oh, camera crew, like
Right.
we can talk and let's like act up
Right.
or whatever. So people have at various points done little tiny things to be like a stunt or said a thing or whatever. But in
Yeah.
terms of seeing other media at events, there's like definitely other reporters from other TV stations who we've recognized again and again. We haven't gotten to know very many of them all that well. Oddly enough, it doesn't ever feel like just going up and talking to them is all that appropriate. That might just be my like
Right.
weird, ironic shyness.
That's what I would think, because like it's probably not professional portrait, but I could just picture like maybe this is just my own video collaborative brain. When you're like on a set, you're like, okay, so what should we do here? And you're just like planning things but obviously it's different stations. But I just have to wonder, it's like, hey, do you have a shot of like this, or can you see if there's like a shot? I'm just trying to piece together this thing. And a lot of those journalists out there are one man, one crew person.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like it's
Channel
just-
5. That's
Yeah.
the guy we see at so many events. There's
Dude.
this guy from Channel 5.
What was his name?
Nick.
He's-
I think it was Nick. We
Yeah.
actually just learned that yesterday.
Yeah.
At
That was the
March for
first
Life
time
thing.
I've ever talked to another reporter
Really?
from
Yeah.
another station. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just because we have seen each other at so many events in the
Oh,
last
gotcha.
year. Like, it's been weird with Nick. We've gone to like everything at the same
Interesting.
time.
He might
So
have a-
it finally was like, all right, well, we had a brief conversation with him.
That's cool.
Um,
See, and that's what I would think. I'm like, there's got to at least be, because it's also that thing of like, you understand what I'm going through, I understand what you're going through, type of thing of like, we're all here trying to capture this event, and maybe it's something really emotional or really traumatic or really dangerous, even potentially. Like, it's just sort of like a mutual understanding. Like, it's that feeling of seeing somebody else and you're trying to get the shot. You're like working basically, but you're in this high pressure situation too. So yeah, I just always wondered if there was anything to that. But yeah, that's and kind of on that note, when they're I see some of those media people being one person camera crews, and they're kind of just there to capture it. They're not actually doing interviews, or if they are, they have to set up the camera and do it themselves. I'm like, that sucks. I would never want to do that. You guys are fortunate enough to have a more than one person crew. And so for the listeners, Trip, you're the person behind the camera.
Yep.
And Keegan's the one in front of it. That's how you guys run it. Did you guys just fall into those roles pretty much? Like
pretty much.
it
I think
just
so. I mean,
wasn't even like a
it was
conversation?
Keegan's brainchild to begin with, going back to June 1st, I think.
He's like, can
and
you
so it
hold the
was like-
camera for me?
Yeah, can you just hold a camera for me? And it's like, yeah, sure.
Hmm.
And one thing that, again, being in broadcast journalism media since high school,
Mhm.
they all just look the same. It's boring. These
Yeah.
like 2-minute packages. It's like tripod, pan, tilt,
Yeah.
zoom, and it's just so stagnant that
Yeah.
if you have the endurance, just pop it on your shoulder and you're fully gonzo now.
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
just at the thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we have a guide, and then hopefully we can meet some organizers so we can get from the top of the organizing pool what's going on and
Yeah.
what they actually intend for this
Yeah.
thing. And so
Wow.
yeah, it just kind of works, and I think it's a little bit more. I mean, I think it's a little bit more engaging to watch something that is being handheld and carried.
Oh yeah.
But yet still stable, not like
Yeah.
Independence Day kind of all over the place, but that's not just
Jason Bourne.
sticks. Yeah, like
Right.
sticks, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
this again.
Yeah.
But then that's another thing that's cool is we don't have the restrictions that a lot of other media organizations have.
Right.
Yeah, we can
So-
do longer segments. And
Yeah, and
That's
that's what I really like about it is like we can get into the meat of
Wow.
we're not just getting a tapas of like this event, like we're getting a full course meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I like about it.
That's that's amazing. And even getting those angles from the top of the sheriff Humvees, I see. You're doing it for the shot. You're
Yeah.
getting up there.
Yeah, that was probably the only time without getting arrested I would ever be allowed to
I was
stand
just
on
gonna
one of
say,
those.
like, if I didn't see the guy in the background, I'm like, he's got the protest rebel spirit in him. That's what he's doing. If I didn't see the guy in the background, like letting you up there or whatever. And man, just talking about crazy things you guys have shot and filmed and experienced, and like how you guys have this dynamic too. You'll be like, Trip, come here, look at this, like in the thing. Probably not very often, but I've caught it at least a couple times. And the most recent one was when you guys went inside the bomber and flew in the bomber. What the
Legendary.
hell? Where was the phone call? No, I'm just kidding. How was that? Like,
So
what was
literally, we came into SOPBS on Monday morning, like
9 o'clock.
yeah, September 1st or something. I think it was September 1st. It was like 9 a.m. And I had been forwarded a press release by Jeff LeBeau, who's basically our executive producer. And he was like, hey, this cool, like, commemorative Air Force, like, World War II bomber is going to be landing in Medford. Like, maybe that would be something interesting for the show. And we were like, oh, that's happening in like 45 minutes. Okay, well, yeah, let's get down there and do it. So we just grabbed some cameras from the station, not even our usual gear, and just went down to
Oh, really?
just film the landing and see if we could make contact with the folks who were coming and make something out of it. So we like drove down there, like presented our press like logos and stuff to the guy Shane.
This is
who,
it. This sweater.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
like-
and like business cards and stuff. Like it doesn't. A lot of the
doesn't
time,
take
it
a
doesn't
lot.
take a lot of
Dude,
proof
I've
to like
seen-
get in.
I've seen the TikTok of the guy who like watch me like get front side seats at a Lakers game, and he like
Yeah.
walks in with a little fake ass badge that says press or camera, and he walks in with his phone. He's like documenting himself, literally walking past security. They just like let him go through,
Yeah.
and he's just right there courtside with his crappy little camera, and it's just like, dude, that's actually messed up. Like what you can get away with.
Yeah.
With somebody needs to crack down on that, but clearly not in this case.
In this case, it was legit.
It was scientific.
It was like,
Yes.
yo, we are like a PBS crew,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you know,
right.
in we went, and
but it was just a little bit easier than it should have been. You're like,
yeah.
eh.
And that
Hey,
has
that guy
happened to us a
behind me
lot.
though, maybe check his credentials. Like,
Yeah, I don't trust this Channel 5
yeah,
guy.
right, yeah.
But
Let us have this exclusive. Yeah.
we were like loaded into a golf cart and driven out onto the tarmac just in time, basically, to watch the B-17 fly overhead, circle around, and then land on the runway.
Holy.
And then a B-25 came in right after that. So it's like these two incredible old airplanes, like both are 77 years old, I think, and still flying, have been flying their whole life.
World War II is when they were last in commission, or
Yeah. The B-17 has never stopped flying. It
Okay.
was traded around between a bunch of different groups and organizations until serving its current purpose as basically a mobile living history museum. But they
nice way to
landed,
think
and when the guys started climbing out of the airplane in their jumpsuits, we just were part of the greeting party, basically, of like, hi, welcome to Medford. Like, we're so glad
Wow.
you're here. Like, this is awesome.
how many other people were there at the greeting party part?
Like 5 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like an exclusive story, practically. You guys
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Channel
they-
5 was there, got the landing, and maybe talked
Yeah.
to Roddy, the head guy, but like that was it.
but they had to get back to make the story.
But we were like, well, they're going to be here all week, so we didn't have our real gear, so we basically made contact with Roddy, who is the like ground leader of the Commemorative Air Force wing that had brought these planes. And we were like, hey, we want to do a story about your guys' visit here. This is pretty cool. These airplanes are incredible. And he was like, yeah, great. So he invited us to come back the next day with our proper gear to do like the full shoot. And there was also going to be a bunch of actual World War II aviator veterans, like all 90 plus years old. One of them was 100 years old,
Wow.
coming out to take a look at the planes. And
that lived here in the valley.
yeah, like they were like living at the Rogue Valley Manor,
Yeah.
and so they just got like minivanned out to the airport to come
Wow,
and enjoy this
incredible.
experience as well. So we got to interview them. We got to talk to this incredible guy named Stan Luther, who used to pilot B-25s between World War II and Vietnam, and
old Stan.
they let him climb up and sit in the cockpit, like
Oh
where
my
he would
God.
used to work, and we got up there. I sat next to him, and we did an interview up in the cockpit.
Did he get emotional?
One of the other guys did. This also very incredible guy named Jim Bratton. We interviewed him standing in the bomb bay of the B-17, and he was actually a Navy man, but he talked about just all of these different feelings and experiences from the war in kind of a vague way. You could tell that he was struggling to remember things, but at the same time, he was very emotional about what he was able to remember. And I recommend everybody watch that interview. I think it was one of my better ones, or maybe not out of, better is the wrong word, but like it was very chilling, because it was like at one point he takes this long pause and just goes, I'm 100 years old, like just like actually panicking.
Like the first time he actually realized.
It
how
was
old
like he was realizing after being in World War II, he
That's-
was talking about like friends he lost and stuff, and then he just
Yeah.
goes, I'm 100 years old, and then starts crying, and so we ended the interview there. But I guess the Commemorative Air Force people, Commemorative Air Force is the organization that like maintains and keeps these planes going and brings them out to show them to people. I guess they were impressed with how we were going about filming things, because then they just invited us to go on a flight, and they offered.
So that wasn't even part of the plan. You
Not
just-
originally.
When you woke up that morning,
well, what
if
we
someone
did-
would have told you
Yeah.
you're gonna fly in a World War II bomber over Medford that day,
on,
you would have told them to get off of.
It was that
drugs.
week. This all happened over the course of a few days.
Okay,
Yeah,
a
but
couple
still-
of
but
different
still.
days.
I think day 2 of the shoot, before we actually got to the airport, I like went up to Jeff and was like, Jeff, could the station afford 2 $400 tickets for us to go fly on this thing? Kind
my
of like on a wing and a prayer, like no way the station would pay for
Oh,
that.
really?
And so it was like, no, of course not. It's like, okay, all right. So, we were just still going to go ahead with it. And then,
Okay.
just we're like, well, you guys should come up. We're about to fly some folks. And it's like,
They basically they told us like, if you come back tomorrow, we have a flight with 2 open seats that you guys can go up on with us and film that part of the experience too. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. So we went back for a 3rd day to then and interviewed more veterans and went up with this other guy named what was his name? Larry Wills. And
was that his last name?
Yeah,
Okay.
Wills. And so we went on a flight with Larry Wills, who was an old ball turret gunner, and so we got to fly in a B-17 with old ball
craziest.
turret
Did he get to
gunner.
sit behind the gun?
No, well, like
I
the
don't
ball
think he
turret is
could've fit in there.
impossible to get into.
You
It's
gotta
like
be like
really?
a contortionist.
yeah, and they bolt it shut and stuff, so it's
Oh, God.
yeah, it was all not available to the public in that
Yeah,
sense.
right.
But
See it on the outside, not from
yeah.
the inside.
yeah, but he just enjoyed the ride with us, and yeah, I mean, by far, it's one of the most incredible experiences I've had shooting Us As We Are, at least so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to top because it was just incredible.
Yeah.
This plane is more or less open air. It's not pressurized. There's no sound insulation
I was
whatsoever.
just gonna say, what was it like riding in that? Was it just like being in an actual tin can in the sky? Like,
Yeah.
and then at one point, I hear you shout in the video, "Trip, come here, look at this!" Like you can see, and you just see him walk over and point down and like see the sky. I'm like, they're actually showing the perspective. They're not just sitting there in an interview. Like it's looking out the window. It's looking at the shadow of the plane on the ground, and like such a surreal feeling. Like feeling like you're up that high just watching this thing. Yeah, what was the takeaway from that day? Like from talking to those people?
Send me
from
down
you
a
guys?
huge World War II rabbit hole.
We ended up
Oh, I
watching
imagine.
all of Band of Brothers over the
Really?
next
Just
couple of months.
Yeah, from all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Like, and something else I wanted to for sure talk about. This could be a good segue into it. Is talking about the video side of things, just from my own personal interest. Is when it comes to editing, like how do you decide what to cut and what to keep?
What I do is I first just take all of the
And
interviews.
do you ever struggle with it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's every single month there's like a day where it's basically pure despair as I don't know what I'm going to do and I don't know how to figure it out. But I've gotten used to the feeling of despair and know that it will pass at this point.
Despair is like an old friend to me now.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. It isn't actually a George Lucas quote, but I think it was a SNL sketch or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
where
yeah.
it was like somebody pretending to be George Lucas and pretending to be interviewed by a reporter. And the reporter asks, like, George, you made all these incredible movies. Like, why don't you go back to making fills? And it seems like it was
do
so
you
much
miss
fun.
it?
Do you miss making films? And fake George Lucas just goes, no, I have $1 million and making movies is just a giant pain in the ass. It's like super relatable. It's completely true. It's like, yeah, making movies is not a pleasant process. I know a lot of artists who are like obsessed with the process of the work. They're like, I can never consider something finished. I just want to keep working back into the painting. I'm quoting Miles Frody. But I'm not like that at all. I'm totally finished product oriented. Like I can't honestly say I enjoy video editing very much.
Interesting.
Even though I think I've gotten to be good at it.
Right.
I've gotten to be good at it just because I want to get to that finished product
Yeah.
and then present it to people.
We should for sure talk at some point later about how we might be able to help each other, because I really do enjoy editing, and I have like I'm more in that artist camp of things where like I love that process and like getting in there and like working with the clay and like keep melding it and it's never done and I'll never put it out, and why would I put it out? Like because I want to keep working on it, and I just love the process of editing the shape and mold stories and craft things and stuff. So yeah, that can be another professional conversation at some other time, but yeah, I'm just genuinely curious about these stories and how you guys decide to portray them, because even when it comes to camera and shooting, and Lewis, what is your, I guess, role in this too?
So I'm the guy behind the camera. While we're
extra set of
shooting,
eyes.
I get people to sign release forms, which can be a difficult job if you're at an anti-vaxxer rally where everyone is afraid of signing papers and thinks that the media wants to steal their soul.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's sort of the main thing I do is get people to sign release forms and also just sort of act as the third pair of eyes.
Yeah.
Because especially if it's an event where there's a ton of people, if it's Keegan having to look into the camera, Trip having to look at Keegan, sometimes you do kind of just need another person to be there. In the long term, though, I hope to get more into editing. I'm trying to get myself set up with a computer that could actually edit videos without catching fire.
Lewis
So-
asks a fair bit of questions as well.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
his official title is contributing correspondent and chef because it should not be understated that
Hell
Lewis in our house does like all of the cooking and
Nice.
basically keeps us fed with like incredible meals all the time.
That's awesome to
I do
have
what
the
I
one
can.
roommate that does that. Yeah. My only roommates I ever lived with, my close friend, like he loves cooking and my wife currently loves cooking. And I'm like, I have such a blessed life. Like I don't have to cook. Everybody around me loves doing it. And yeah, so that's awesome that you fulfill like that exact perfect role of like, I can just fill the gap of whatever's sort of needed. And yeah, on an actual set, I can imagine like I want to ask you guys about your not aspirations, but your inspirations rather, your the different sources of media that you guys look up to and try to emulate in your work. But one for me is in this kind of similar vein as Vice News for sure. Like the types of stories I'm sure you guys have seen, maybe listeners have seen of like, you know, very long form, like sometimes 40 minutes to an hour, like stories on YouTube of just these crazy individuals and stories. And like, they're getting in there, this raw, gritty shit with like, but really professionally shot and edited and sound. I'm like, that is, I think, where I want to go. Like that is like exactly the type of thing. And like, there's a story they had about, you know, drug overdoses in some part of the world. I don't even remember, some part of the country, I mean. And, you know, you're watching somebody actually overdose and die and a girl like trying to revive him and they're just sitting there recording it. And it just pans over and the audio guy is just holding the boom, like not sure what to do. And the director's behind him. It's like a little mini crew. And they didn't know that night they were going out with this girl to watch somebody basically die. But they're documenting it. And the only reason you could see this is because she saved his life. She brought him back to life.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she resuscitated him. She used like 3 things of Narcan to do it. I'm just like, that, it's fucked up to watch. It's hard to watch. It's difficult, but like, that's what I want to do because of how emotional it is. Like I'm drawn to the emotional aspect of video, you know?
I think
and
Vice
stories.
Vice definitely was a huge inspiration for
Okay.
me, especially because of like I love their correspondent Thomas Morton, who's just this like skinny, like nerdy glasses wearing dude. I love how they have a correspondent who's this like hulking football player looking guy, and yet they keep sending Thomas Morton into these insane situations. Like they had one where there's this festival in the mountains in Peru where people just fist fight each other. Like you can just call someone out and you like fight them. And they just had him go and do that and just get his ass beat by some Peruvian teenager.
Oh my
and
God.
I think just the fact of like,
Yeah, it's so raw.
it's like, I feel like I can relate to Thomas Morton. He's just this
Yeah.
like skinny, nerdy looking dude. And the fact that they send him out into these crazy situations and that they do make it a very long form
Yeah.
thing where they make it a story. It's not a story about him. It is a story about what's going on, but
He's
a
like
part
the punch
of
of the joke, or he's the punchline, or he's
it. Yeah,
like the,
wherever it's necessary.
yeah. It was like the same thing with Murr from Impractical Joke. No, it wasn't him. Who was it that like had his spin-off of their own show? He was like the punching bag of one
Oh.
show, but he went off. It wasn't Impractical Jokers. It was some other little band of guys. One of them was the punching bag, and he went off and did his own show. It'll come to me by the end of it. But yeah, it's you guys. Do you have inspiration or other shows I mean, you mentioned PBS. I mean, just as a network, but I mean, yeah, actual media or content that you guys consume that you look to for inspiration.
There's one big one. I'll let Keegan get to that one. But for me, I really like CBS. They might still be doing it, but they had a series called Everybody Has a Story. And
I love that.
are you familiar with that?
I've heard it mentioned, but yeah, I've never actually listened to it.
Okay.
But I've heard other people talk about it and how
It's
yeah.
a great little slice of life kind of a thing. But long story short, the reporter, forgot his name, would, behind his back throw a dart on a map and it would land in a city. He would go to that city, open up a phone book and call people until somebody was willing to have him and his camera guy come over and do a little story about them. Completely unscripted, just like, let's hang out for a day. And then over the day, just this story would kind of emerge as something kind of incredible or like how serendipitous, or touching or something.
Yeah, right.
Like this guy has, like his wife died, and then he has like this really emotional relationship with this goose at the lake in his neighborhood, and he just goes and sits with it and talks with it, feeds it and shit.
Yeah.
But I really like that idea of just like, you can go literally anywhere,
Yeah.
and there will be a story.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
if it's written, if it's scripted, pre-planned. If you go and attend something or talk to somebody,
Yeah.
something will come out,
Yeah.
and you can make something out of it.
Yeah. Like literally every person has a story, you know?
Mhm.
Like I tend to think of my particular life as pretty boring, but I'm like, I know genuinely somehow if people ask me the right questions, they could form a little story out of it. But
No,
like,
you're badass, dude.
thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's a cool view to have. And yeah, what was the show you were going to mention?
Well, yeah, it's controversial to bring up now because of
That
stuff.
got
But
canceled.
yeah, Channel 5 and All Gas No Breaks with Andrew Callahan was undeniably a massive inspiration for the way that I try to do things right now.
Really?
Unfortunately, he did just recently
What
have
hap-
multiple credible accusations of sexual assault and
Oh,
harassment.
really? I didn't
And
know that.
then he did confess and apologize. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, he's basically not going to be doing that anymore, which is,
No.
yeah,
Didn't
probably
he just get
Yeah.
signed on
he
to
literally just put out a really fantastic HBO documentary that like
yeah, that's what it
I
was.
thought was like
Worth watching.
really, and I
I'll watch
still
now,
think
yeah.
it's worth
I'm
watching.
gonna watch it for sure.
But yeah, unfortunately, that was a huge disappointment finding out like he wasn't as good of a person.
I know,
or-
right? Like when
or-
you have this
yeah.
idol, yeah,
Yeah.
that's-
And
I
yeah,
didn't know
there
that.
was,
That sucks.
There was a degree of idolization for sure.
Yeah.
I
Which
thought for
does-
sure you were going to go California's Gold.
Yeah, I was thinking we still got Huell Hauser.
Yeah, we
Well,
still-
yeah, and that's the other one I want to bring up. I'm getting to it, but yeah, I can't deny that the Channel 5 stuff with Andrew Callahan is pretty influential over
Yeah.
me, and a lot of the stuff that they were doing in terms of how to like operate in a current media landscape.
Yeah,
But then going back to more legacy stuff, and probably my biggest inspiration right now, ironically, and it had nothing to do with politics, but is California's Gold with Huell Hauser, which
never
was
heard of
a 1990s through early 2000s California public television TV show hosted by this Tennessee guy named Huell Hauser, who he just has a funny voice, funny accent. And he would go to all of these incredible, obscure things all throughout California and make like full half-hour TV shows about them.
yeah. Wow.
And I just loved our shooting style is basically the Huell Hauser shooting style where it's the camera guy is handheld and he follows Huell around. Huell has a stick microphone and goes up to people and asks them questions. And
Yeah.
And he's very like just effusively friendly. Like,
yeah,
on the
just
show, he's always
so,
going up, just like, "Well, hi there," and he will
Nice.
almost just sort of barge into situations.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like he'll just walk right up to someone, no introduction, just like, "Why don't you tell me about this thing?"
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what's unfortunate and fortunate is that SOPBS and the people that I work with now, Brad Fay specifically, used to be friends with Huell Hauser, but
Oh, no kidding.
Huell died of prostate cancer, I believe, in 2013, and so I narrowly missed crossing paths with the guy who's like probably my biggest inspiration.
Oh, wow.
But in a way, maybe it's a good thing. I mean, I actually recently read his autobiography, and certain things suggest like obviously the man is more complicated in person than he was on television.
Sure.
But nonetheless, yeah, Huell Hauser is like a major source of inspiration. I would love to get to that level someday. I think
Yeah.
that's like both attainable and admirable if I can do it.
I think something that is really important about him is the level of interest that he shows in things
Oh, yeah.
doesn't vary based on how popular they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he goes to the Golden Gate Bridge or something, he's showing the same level of enthusiasm and interest that he shows when he goes to like some abandoned town in, it was like the Salton Sea episode, I think.
Yeah.
Or he's like at some like abandoned truck stop,
Yeah.
just talking to some people about like the lake that used to be there.
Yeah.
So it's like arguably not even that like objectively interesting
Yeah,
of a
right.
place.
Yeah.
But he's still just being
It makes it
super
interesting
interested.
with
Yeah.
with his delivery. Yeah, and that ties back to the thing about acting because I've had that thought too a couple of times where like really I think the only thing interesting is about this is the person talking about it and like the fact that they talk about other things with the same level. I've had that thought because like I watch John Oliver from time to time, and that's one where you could argue some of the things they talk about could be seen as like significantly more important or more pressing than other things, but he's always presenting it with the same level of energy, which maybe this is a human nature thing, but I find it really refreshing too. Kind of like you said, it's like, oh wow, like one could take any of these issues that seriously and it could feel acceptable almost type of thing. Like, and there's another podcast I listen to called Philosophize This. And he talks about just different philosophers throughout history and then just different ideas today. But he delivers every single episode, whether it's an old, outdated idea completely that people have shit all over since the 1400s, or if it's something current and modern, he always talks about it with the same energy level. So I think there is something like about, and he's sort of mastered that. So I think there is something to that about like how you deliver, and even in what you're doing with your, with the interviews is like every story is, you bring that same level of energy. It's like, we're here today covering this event. Let's see what we can find out. It's like, okay, here we are, it's just, we're going. It doesn't have to be like a nice slow introduction into something to try to build up the hype for it. It's like, here we go. We're going to explore this dam. We're going up into the stratosphere on this bomber today. We're going to the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I know there was at least one other video I wanted to bring up, but before I do that, the Alvord Desert one too, I just wanted to bring up because we briefly talked about Eastern Oregon a couple times, and like just wanted to touch on it one more time. I think that experience that you guys took must have been incredible, because that is just, and the fact that you tied it in, you made it informational too. Like that's what I absolutely loved. It wasn't just like, because it could have just as easily been like you guys just showing some clips from your thing and like, yeah, there's some cool shots, and you just documented your trip, and you do a more vlog style where you're like, all right, peace out guys, we were here, did it, have a good one. But you actually took the time to do all these green screen effects and all this stuff. And not the multi-million-dollar production value, but like you made it work and it fit perfectly. And you gave informational facts about it too, to incorporate. So how did you like plan that out? Like, did you know you were going to do it exactly that way? Did you research those facts ahead of time, or?
We do research a lot ahead of time. I basically never write anything before doing the shoot, because I do like to just let a story emerge. And there was actually a funny example recently of a time when that was an exception to that, where I had written something ahead of time for like, all right, I think I felt pretty confident that on New Year's Eve we were going to be able to capture the moment of the New Year's Eve countdown.
Yeah,
and so for my
which you did,
2022,
right?
Well, I'll tell you this.
Are you talking about 2022 or 2021, or like
this most recent New Year's?
Okay.
I was putting together the Us As We Are 2022 recap show, and I was beginning that show with the countdown into the year 2022.
I like that.
And so then we planned to go to the same party
At Johnny B's.
Yeah, film the countdown again to be like the outro of the show.
Oh, nice. Was it still Smiley and them?
No, it was different groups entirely.
Gotcha.
But same location, and that was going to be the idea.
Different night altogether.
It was a very different night, and I'll just tell you, like, so I expected a countdown, and I had written like script for the recap piece around the idea that like, all right, we'll definitely get a countdown. And I even told Trip and
so
stuff.
The countdown was the script, like
pretty much. I mean, I had like a whole profound like
everything
outro.
was going to build up to that.
Yeah, it was like I had already like made the recap. All we needed to shoot was that like New Year's Eve thing, slap that at the end of the show, and then put it out.
Right. Easy.
But what happened on
simple.
New Year's was that they just like the girl who was like the MC for the event was kind of a hippie, on the hippie end of the spectrum.
Sort
of
clouds.
new
A little in the
spiritual
clouds.
type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't necessarily keeping track of this thing we call this concrete thing we call time. Time was not necessarily an object to her.
Well, so when it came time for the countdown, she goes ahead and goes like, all right, everybody, we're going to ohm into the new year. And then just goes, ohm. And
but like
certain
the
people,
crowd, everyone's talking to each other in the
yeah.
crowd. So it's like, if you want to get their attention, going 10, 9, like everyone knows what that is. But like if everyone's just sort of not paying attention, you start going ohm, no one realizes.
No, what it produced was this insanely confused moment where nobody in the crowd knew that it was actually the countdown, or only half the people did. I didn't know. Trip did the pan over that we had planned for after the countdown when he realized what had happened, but I hadn't realized, so I was still pointing the microphone at the like speaker, and then I like realized he's pointing it at me, and then I put two and two together and go, oh my god, that ohm thing was the countdown. Oh my god, our shot was just totally ruined
now.
Oh my god.
And,
is there footage of this?
Yeah, it's on it's on pbs.org.
Of you realizing that, did you make like a comedic thing out of it then?
I did, yeah. I basically had to turn it into a new ending to the piece. So what I had written ahead of time was blown out. So I probably will never write anything ahead of time ever again now.
Oh, no
exceptions.
Come on.
You can never predict.
Because you can never predict what you're going to find out there. And our whole show is very much like real-time based and just what actually happened in the field. So there's not much to write about ahead of time.
There's a time and a place for a script, for sure. Like a hard script like that, yeah.
So Us As We Are is totally unscripted until the last minute when it's like, then I have all of the interviews down and everything is basically assembled. And there's just a couple of spots where I need like transitional voiceover to be like, after this story, we went to this next story.
Yeah.
Voiceovers like that, I write those and then like I write them on like paper
Yeah.
and then go downstairs to the audio booth and record it like in the same
Right
hour.
there.
So there isn't a lot of pre-planning at all.
But there doesn't need to be because of the nature of what you guys are capturing. And again, because there's so little cut out. I mean, it seems like it. What do you have like a rough percentage wise of about how much you guys think you cut out of your total footage?
Oh, I mean, it's like in terms of total footage, it's like 80% of it gets cut out.
Okay.
But not interview content. I think interview content we keep as much as we can.
Okay, interesting.
To fit TV length at this point.
So what is the other footage you're getting? Just like way too much B-roll that you know
Yeah.
you're not going to need?
Yeah, and just like shot after shot after shot of like the parade just marching down
Yeah.
the street, and it's like we just get tons of variety of that, so that later we can pick and choose like
Yeah.
what I want to put into the piece as B-roll, or
Interesting.
things that somebody talks about. I can then find the shot
Reference
of that.
it. Yeah, you guys do always pretty much have a reference too. Thinking back on it, that was another thing that stood out to me is like, if not, I noticed at one point you guys referenced other videos from within a video because somebody was talking about like the fires, and you guys of course just happened to have footage of the fires, and then homelessness. You guys and COVID, you guys had all that footage. But yeah, like the B-roll is perfectly thrown in there, and yeah, you have just that right amount to cover, to transition whatever you need to do without necessarily having to plan for it. And how much about of the interviews did you say you usually cut out, like percentage wise?
I think we at this point we keep, I mean, it depends on the length of how long we talk to the person, but I think
Yeah.
like usually we keep about half of an interview in, because there's plenty of an interview that's people going a little bit off topic and stuff.
Sure.
In the early days with us, as we are when it was on YouTube, I would let these videos run for like 2 hours if they needed to, and just let it be all out. But I was finding that those just actually weren't as good. Like I think there is, even when you're doing a long piece, you want to condense down to having like the core idea of what people said.
Yeah.
And so I try to edit them down so that they fit a length, and it kind of keeps a momentum going and stays on topic and is interesting. And just try to like be very honest about like, all right, keep the most important things that they said, keep the essence of what they were talking
Yeah.
about in the piece.
Yeah.
And it's hard to misrepresent people when you are putting them on for like 2 entire minutes.
Exactly,
You know,
like-
if a person has 2 whole minutes in a piece to
Yeah.
talk out of 7, you know, it's hard to be like
Yeah.
to portray them in a way that they aren't like actually.
They aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely true, because like, yeah, what you guys are doing, it's like you kind of have to allow them that time to talk and to be open about it. And do you guys ever go back and watch the videos? And
Oh
like,
yeah.
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 you guys watch what's your favorite if you had to pick one?
For me, it's the September 2022 episode with the B-17 flight and
Really?
the UFOs and the Phoenix Rising celebration.
Oh, that's right, because you have multiple stories within one episode.
Yep.
Yeah, what are you guys' favorite
That's
stories?
a pretty damn good one.
If not episodes, then just individual stories, like things you've shot or.
For me, the like Salem anti-vax protest stands out partly because I think Tripp was on some like family business or something like that. So I ended up having to shoot that one.
Oh, you were.
So to
filming it,
me,
okay.
that like stands out, but also it was just a crazy event.
Yeah. And yeah, I also wanted to ask you guys who operate the camera too about what your thoughts are on composing a shot and like how you think about making sure you're shooting the right thing, and what it's like seeing the world through a camera basically, and especially knowing what you know and what you're trying to capture, and if you ever have any reservations of like, am I doing this right, or like could there have been a better way to do this, or does it feel pretty second nature to you guys at this point shooting, you think?
I'd say it's pretty instinctual, but the standards still follow rule of thirds.
Composition.
Knowing how to expose a shot. Again, it's mostly auto that we use, so that's not all that relevant. But yeah, definitely knowing how to compose a shot. Nose
Is it
room.
auto because you that's required, or like is it just easier?
No, it actually performs really well in auto. We've got a Canon XA40, and it does really well in daytime.
Yeah,
But once you get into a church or
Yeah,
something like that,
indoors
then it can be a little bit trickier. Not really much you can do about that unless you have more lighting.
yeah,
But
We stick a light on the camera pretty often.
yeah, we do.
okay.
If protests or events run into the evening kind of a thing, we'll slap a light on
nice, okay,
and try to light the subject. But as far as like shooting the actual interviews goes, it's that's I pick up a lot of that from. I pick up a lot from Luis Fuerte, who was the camera guy for Huell Hauser and California Gold,
Oh, wow.
and because they kind of developed that formula,
Mm.
and so we've, I guess, kind of adapted it, but more or less just left it as it is.
Yeah.
Where, for example, if I was going to be shooting this interview between you and Keegan, ideally I'd want to have more of this kind of a shot when Keegan's asking the question, and then when he tops it off and hands it to you, I kind of take a step closer to
Yeah,
Keegan,
right. I've
and then
noticed that.
it's kind of like a little back and forth.
No, I loved your like a couple of the moves you did in the homelessness one and the clean sweep video. I remember a couple of the times like making note of that when he asked a question, you had like the perfect, he's like, they'd finished talking and it was so smooth. It's like, so when you think about this and you did the slow zoom out and pan to reveal them both in the shot, compose them both there, so you're not like going just to him and then just to him and just to him. It's like you know exactly how to like bring the audience really into the conversation, because his questions, are relatively brief, but also just like you want to still see the person and how they're reacting, and like the way you compose them and then like slowly come back into him was just it was just buttery. I just have to shout you out for that.
We often use like one shot and two shot terminology.
Yeah.
Like and Tripp, I'm sure, just has this in his head in terms of here's my one shot, here's my two shot. But we both worked at the Digital Media Center, and that was the type of terminology they would use for all the camera people. It's like, all right, everybody, find your one shot, and that's like a shot of just the singular person. Now find your two shot, and that's the shot of like both people sitting next to
These
each
are
other.
the fundamentals,
and
right?
you get both of those shots in your head so that you can easily just go between the two of them
and
as you
smoothly
need to.
too.
Yeah.
And then
for what you guys are doing.
with the two shot, I consider the two shot kind of like, I consider the one shot more of like an over the shoulder, to where you're still seeing Keegan listening and perceiving what's being said, but he's kind of on the edge of the frame.
Yeah.
I've started to kind of lean into that more of leaving him. I don't have to cut him all the way out.
Yeah.
So I just kind of leave him in, and then
I was definitely going to say, like, it'd be interesting to, add a little bit of that foreground element into your shots with him. Like, just, the shoulder, something. Just have something furry out of focus in the foreground adds that level of interest, too. It can, if in the right setting. Yeah, that's something I'm trying to start exploring as well, just when I can. Like, trying to understand, like, depth of field and, like, different compositional elements and how to create depth and create interest in the shot without making it too distracting. It's definitely that's the part of it I love, of the video stuff, is like just understanding those rules of how to draw emotion out of people, really, because that's what you're trying to do with any video stuff. It's like you're trying to elicit emotion, you're trying to get people invested in it, and through their emotions is how to do that. But again, you guys are doing that in a way of just presenting facts, but it's almost like, even though it almost feels like with such a lack of emotion, like the emotion comes across from the interviews. You let purely the people in it portray the emotion. You don't try to do it with any trickery or camera or music or anything. Like, I hope people listening will go and watch this from all this describing we're doing, because you really do have to watch it. It's just an experience. Unlike anything I've really seen. I mean, we've all seen those shows, All Gas, No Breaks and stuff like that. But for something like that, for example, it kind of relies on comedy, like the comedic element. And he knows how to cut it up like that. And he's not necessarily trying to like educate people. I mean, for you guys, it's local. So it's like local events and local things. So people naturally will just kind of care about it, I think, in that way. But he kind of has to be comedic with it and keep it short form and keep it choppy and cutty. And so do you guys think about, like, again, to talk about like the future and where trendy media is going, do you have like a media outlook or plan on, like, we're going to have to start making some vertical things. Like, we're going to have to start composing our shots maybe a little different so we can crop it vertically, so we can so the right people can digest it? Or do you kind of see it more as like, we're going to kind of just keep chugging along with this formula and we'll find a platform that fits this formula? Like, how do you think about reversing it?
It's more the second. I do see
Yeah.
this as being probably a public media project
Yeah.
for the long run. That's my goal.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a fallback plan around, like, there's always the chance the public media won't be able to fund it forever.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've retained all the rights to us as we are, and I have
nice.
all the liberty in the world in terms of if I want to separate from public media and go back to doing it totally independently.
Wow.
I retain all of the ability to do that. That said, I would like to keep it as a public media project because I think that lends it a combination of like legitimacy, but also gives us the freedom to still do what we want to do with it. And broadcasting it on television, even though not a lot of people watch television, or not as many people watch television anymore, it does guarantee you an audience of thousands. Because there are just people who do. And when you put something on TV, it's like, that's what they're going to watch. We're very fortunate to have the time slot that's
I
right
was about to
between,
say the time slot is ridiculous.
Yeah, we're like
Is it really?
after the Antiques Roadshow, which is by far the most popular
It's the best
PBS
one.
television show they have. So it's like we're in a very good place.
We're right before Rick Steves' Europe, right?
Yeah, it's like we are
What is
just
that?
in the lineup of like powerful PBS shows.
It's just like a Europe travel kind of culture show.
And people love him because it's like how to do it cheap, how to travel cheap in Europe, and also he's from Portland.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, you guys are literally in that.
We've got a
perfect
good
spot.
time slot, and then PBS is getting better about its streaming platform. We've got a really robust streaming platform, and so
What
I
is
think
it?
it has.
Is it a
Well, there's a PBS Passport, which is like the subscription-based one where you can
Okay.
watch everything PBS, but then our stuff is free. You can watch it just online. You can go to pbs.org, and there's like, they have just a nice setup for playing video there.
yeah
I think it could be better, but
yeah right
There's
I
also
think it's getting there.
There's also the free PBS video app as well.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that I think Us As We Are is on that. But
Probably the best way to watch Us As We Are if you're on like a phone or something like that is get the PBS app, download it. It'll ask you what your local station is.
okay
And,
that's how you would
yeah, you just
filter
put
it.
in SOPBS, but one way or the other, you can just search for Us As We Are and find it regardless of where you live.
Right. Yeah. No, people should definitely check it out because it is just such an interesting. And like, do you guys know of any? Like, is this a very common thing for these local PBS stations to incorporate shows like this from people like yourselves who just like kind of had a show and then you're like now just doing that for, that station? And do you guys ever do research as far as like, I wonder if anyone else in the country? I mean, I'm sure other people are doing somewhat similar things to this, but like, do you have a sense of how many other people are doing this kind of thing?
I'm not aware of any examples that are like exactly like us.
Right, where you're like part of the public service, but you're also doing these things, and you have this freedom, but you're on a network which already has stuff behind it. You have a time slot. You're not aware of anything like that?
I'm not aware of anything. Not saying that there isn't anything out there. It can be hard to find. That is one flaw with like doing local stuff is that it's like, what do you Google to like search for that necessarily? It's like, maybe New Hampshire or somebody has like a very similar show, but it's like, I don't know what it's called. I don't know what to search for. And there's like, thousands of member stations around the country. So or hundreds at least, maybe not thousands.
I think there's like 500 or 600.
Yeah, it's hundreds.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of turf basically for PBS. So there might be another example, but I can say it's a rare thing. I think this is an extremely special opportunity that we have to be doing this stuff.
Yeah, man.
It's not common. It's a weird ride to be on.
Yeah. We just want them all to know if you're like Western South Carolina public TV and you're doing something we're coming for you. We're going to take over your
Coming for
hustle.
your neck.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be the only one.
We're going to eliminate the competition.
Yeah.
Yep.
Southern Oregon is the only region that matters, and we're going to tell you about it.
PBS stations, member stations are I believe are going to need to start thinking about creating local content more because for a long time it seems that
like what is the
not all of
station
them do. Like for a long time, our station wasn't creating much local content because what it was is that.
So what is their role then as a local thing?
When television was the main thing and it was broadcast, basically the member stations were responsible for maintaining broadcast infrastructure, like having an antenna that can then transmit all of the PBS
So you have like
TV
one
shows.
engineer and maybe a janitor. and
Literally
that's-
one
That's
engineer.
SOP.
There are. It wasn't quite that bad for SOPBS, but there are other
that's what I
stations
meant,
around the country that are like basically that, where it's like they are just a small community organization that exists to maintain broadcast infrastructure, so that
transmit a signal.
to transmit a signal and basically carry national TV shows to those super rural audiences. And our station SOPBS was kind of that. There was a little bit of local content. Oh, we dead again?
bit. No, yours is just a little quiet, more quiet than it was, but. There we go.
But yeah, like now that we are in a world where we're shifting away from broadcast being the primary way people are getting TV, I
Right.
think that for local stations to continue to be justifiable for their membership base to want to fund, it's not going to just be about like, oh, let's keep them around so that we can keep listening to or watching over-the-air television and watch Nature and Nova and stuff.
Right.
It's going to be there's got to be some kind of a local thing
Yeah.
that they're doing to make them relevant, because right now PBS, the national organization, really can just put all of their Nova episodes on YouTube and people can go watch it that way. And so
Right.
that totally cuts the member
Circumvented.
stations out.
Yeah.
So for member stations to survive, they've got to do something locally relevant. And I'm not saying it has to be something like Us As We Are, but it's just got to be something. Make some kind of a local forum, provide a
Wow.
community service that's beyond just pushing a national signal through, because doing that is not going to be a way to keep them around. I think
Yeah.
that over time, the number of member stations in the PBS network probably will shrink because not all of them are going to be able to do this.
Yeah, right.
But SOPBS is in just a large enough market that I think it's possible. And
Wow.
right now, that's what we're doing as a station. We're basically getting
Banking
content
on
made
that.
and putting it
Yeah.
out. And, we're still doing the bread and butter. We still maintain broadcast infrastructure, and that's still a huge priority at that station. But fortunately, the management is interested in this local content stuff and sees a need and a
value.
reason to make it a value. And so they've brought us on, hired us
Yeah.
to basically do that for them. And that's a
That's-
very exciting opportunity, because hopefully this will be like the future of member stations, will be
Yeah.
these small TV shows making things
Yeah.
locally.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to talk to you guys more long form about that, because like I might have briefly mentioned, I'm working with a couple of people doing marketing right now. Semi well connected, to certain things, but at the very least, salespeople, like they know a good idea when they see one and how to get it in front of the right people, type of thing. But I really think you guys are onto something with that, and I think like what you guys are doing could be so much bigger than what it is right now too. As well, like as big as it already is, like I think there's got to be a way to scale what you guys are doing for sure. So yeah, definitely want to talk more about that, and then just quickly give us the shout outs of where you guys are at to wrap up, but also just like you guys' final thoughts on Us As We Are and like your futures and what this means to you, and like, when you look back 20, 30 years from now, like what you hope to say about Us As We Are, this project that you guys are, and really, I guess all the kind of content as it all kind of falls under that one umbrella of like exploratory, finding stories and seeking them out. Like, what is it you hope to pass on to grandkids or to other people or even yourselves in the future about this project?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say what I always say about making Us As We Are, is that it's a ton of fun. It's really interesting, and I don't really know what I would be doing if it wasn't Us As We Are. I think I'm super lucky to have Us As We Are. It gives me purpose.
Yeah.
Gives me something to wake up every day and think about that feels important and meaningful. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it is kind of an extension of myself, because it's every day for me. So I'm just very thankful for it. I don't really know who I would be if I wasn't making Us As We Are at this point. In terms of where you can find it, Us As We Are is a PBS product at this point. It's Southern Oregon PBS. If you go to sopbs.org/usasweare, you'll find all of the episodes there. You can also just literally Google Us As We Are, and first result will be
Really?
PBS. And
Wow,
click
that's-
that. All the episodes are there.
How'd
That's
you come
probably
up with the
easiest
name?
way.
This man
Probably-
knows SEO. He
Okay.
can get it to the top of
Oh, you do? Okay, good. So I don't need to really too hard about marketing stuff. Okay, good.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say that name is already really good. Was it not taken? Like,
No, as far as I know, there's no other media thing with that name at all. But I can tell you just quickly how we got the name was
Yeah.
Tripp and I were doing an interview with Ashland's former mayor, Julie Akins. She actually just today resigned, but that's a
really?
whole other
I
story.
didn't know that.
She's
Okay, never
anyway,
mind. We have to tack on 2 more hours. I have to know about Julie. I
But
interviewed her too. I could tell you a story about that too. Interviewing her, but sorry, go on.
Yeah, it was on 4th of July, and we had talked to her about a bunch of things, and she had pondered the idea of becoming the mayor of Ashland, of actually running. But towards the end of that interview, while our cameras were still rolling, she was doing her thing, and she's a very nice lady, so she was being very complimentary to us and thanking us for doing the project we were doing at that point that had no name, just filming all of these people as they are. That was her exact words. She was like, "Thank you for just showing us as we are," and blah 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 blah
Oh,
blah.
wow.
And I didn't catch it at the time, but when I was watching the footage
the
back
edit.
later with
In the
Trip,
edit,
I
baby.
heard her say that, "us as we are," and just right on the spot, both Trip and I were like, "Well, that would be a great title for a TV show or a show of, in any case."
Yeah,
and
a title. That's a
so
good
that
title.
became the title from that point, and
Wow.
we started putting the vertical bar and "us as we are" at the end of all of our video titles.
Hell yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and same question to you guys. What's your takeaway or hope to take away from this project?
Yeah, the takeaway is hopefully it will teach by example patience and a curious ear. Like hopefully people can develop a curious ear and can listen better, which does require patience. Ultimately to continue the conversation of just, hey, like with a person.
Yeah, right.
Just continue the conversation with a person. There doesn't have to be vitriol. There doesn't have to be hatred. It's so easy to do that online, but here we are in a room.
Really hard to start throwing slurs and insults unless really really motivated to right now.
Right, exactly. So hopefully that, mainly just patience and a curious ear.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will, by the time 20 years rolls around, I'll be 48. So hopefully that will happen. And I could easily see, assuming the station doesn't go under for lack of creating content.
Yeah. But like I'm even saying, like you guys could expand this to, I mean, you already are kind of doing stuff on YouTube, but like you could definitely expand this into that platform and allow it to grow there as well. You know, that,
well, and
potential's
the
there.
country is so big.
yeah.
We can't do this across the country. So what
Exactly.
needs to happen is little pockets of groups of people like us and you even
Yeah.
to see the value in this, especially long term,
Yeah.
and to just go out and do it.
Yeah.
And like everybody has a story, it will find itself, especially in the edit. It'll come together. It'll make sense, and it'll be
Yeah.
a nice piece. And everyone that was either there, heard about it and wanted to go, or heard about it and thought that it was dumb, and everybody there was dumb,
Yeah.
could watch it and learn a little something about their community.
And I think it takes a certain aptitude to do though the kind of work you guys are doing, because like I do embrace that spirit of like anybody could do what we're doing, just go out and do it. But I really think the more I encounter people like you guys and just other, not necessarily even video people, but just people with like that genuine curiosity of like they're not attached to any opinion. They just have to know something. It takes that sort of aptitude, I think, to do this kind of work and to do it right and accurately, because you're dealing with such sensitive material. And like, again, anybody can go out and just make a slander video real quick. You know, you see those a dime a dozen.
What's your body count? Kind of a thing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, but you're right. The people that have that aptitude or have that kind of training in either video production or just in sort of directing or knowing how to ask questions, just basic journalism. Maybe that's not even training, because again, it might not be journalism, but it's just like knowing how to ask questions and how to engage with people that you may not agree with, but you don't really care if you don't agree with them because you're not that attached to your opinions. Like that itself is a skill that ought to be developed by people, I think. And yeah, same question to you, I suppose then.
Well,
Yeah, come on, audio guy, you know this.
I said I only pretended to be an audio engineer.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Fooled me. You fooled me. When you mentioned whatever that technical term was for this, I was like, okay, this guy's a professional.
yeah, I think the whole idea of everyone has a story is really huge for me, and also every place has a story. That's, I think, what I'm hoping we can combine with our on the road documentaries and Us as We Are. Is like I was sort of brought up taking road trips all around Oregon, and that was the impression I got, is that you can find something interesting everywhere, anywhere you go, anyone you talk to. So it's, for me, I want people to love wherever they are, love the community they're in as much as I do. I mean, this is the happiest time of my life. I've never been happier.
Wow.
And I think a huge part of that is because of Us as We Are, because of living with these goons. And so, yeah, I don't mean to sound like I have this like winning mindset, like, oh, everything's perfect, but
Yeah.
but I want other people to have the mindset to appreciate where they are and appreciate their own community, because I always hate to hear people talking about like, oh, I just live in this middle of nowhere town. Oh, it sucks here. It's so boring. I don't know. Maybe that's true. I haven't been everywhere,
Yeah.
but I want people to.
But there is a sense of like, maybe you guys are familiar that there's a proverb. It's like bloom where you are planted type of thing.
Yes,
Chinese.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like,
exactly.
and you see literally in nature like dandelions or different flowers like sprouting up through these cracks of like where tons of asphalt and shit garbage has been piled on top of them, and you see just like this poetic beauty of like this little sprout of grass coming up through it. It's just like, what are we doing, guys? Like
Yeah.
these problems are so small. Like you can bloom where you're planted, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess for the future, I don't know. Like these two know a lot more about the, like SOPBS side of things, and so yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Of
Yeah,
course,
you're in that
but
role
the
of like
thing,
learning this stuff too, like
right?
production.
That's what I'm really trying to do.
and
but
teaching
the-
them
the-
some physics hopefully as well.
I'm trying.
Sometimes.
In exchange, yeah.
Well, Keegan knows more about space physics than I do. He's a space nerd, but
Damn.
He's got
Um,
fluid dynamics locked down.
Physics changes from where you go place to place.
it does.
Oh, okay.
But
Interesting.
yeah, I guess the thing that I do know is that I wouldn't be caught not doing this, because I didn't prepare all my life to do video stuff. But I just sort of had the realization when I was living up in Portland and they started doing this down here. I had sort of been considering like, it'd be cool to move to Southern Oregon, hang out with Keegan. But when all that started, I just knew like I can't not do this. I knew that it was a big risk, but I figured the only thing potentially worse than like uprooting my life up there and moving down here would be not doing that.
Right.
Like, what am I just gonna not
Yeah.
go get in on this incredible project?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I want to just keep on getting into things and keep having interesting conversations with people, hopefully continuing to deepen my understanding of the place we are and the world we're in, and
Yeah.
just keep the conversation flowing.
Yep.